Okay, hello again, everybody. We're back, and we're here for the much anticipated next chapter in the Star Trek saga of films. We're now at the point where we're talking about the JJ Abrams Kelvin timeline films. Something that I'm very excited to talk about because there's going to be a lot of very strong opinions
Mm.
and a lot of, I just think this is going to be a fun discussion because there's a lot to say about these films. There's a lot to say.
There is, and on that same vein, I would like to make a PSA that whatever I might say in this stream, if you love these movies, please don't take this to heart. We have a differing of opinion, and that is perfectly fine.
Yeah, yeah, it's perfectly fine. You know, but yeah, I mean that's what makes this fun is like people have strong feelings.
They really do. I used to think I wasn't one of those people, but I'm like, yeah, I totally am. I totally am.
Yeah, once you start thinking about all the things, you just got to go, oh, they did that. So, the last film that we watched, what was it? Nemesis.
Nemesis.
Nemesis. So Nemesis came out in 2002, and it was like, it was basically a nuclear bomb to the Star Trek franchise. At least
Yeah.
at least the movies. The movies took a massive nosedive, and they basically didn't know what to do.
It's kind of like the Hindenburg, where it just kind of just went up. And yeah. And with that being said, there are lots of people who love Nemesis who find it to be a very good movie. I am not one of those people. I think there's, as we said, in our last week, I think there were really good ideas for Nemesis, but again, as we were saying off camera, it's all about execution, and the execution for me personally was not all that great. But I don't think it did Enterprise any favors, and I don't think it did the franchise any favors.
Yeah, it put the franchise in trouble, and I feel like, how long of a time was there where there was no Star Trek content?
I would
No
have
new
to
TV
look
shows?
up when Enterprise came out. I know it was, I want to say maybe 2000. So maybe it was already on the air when Nemesis came out. It was I think it started pre 9/11. And the only reason why that I remember that is because they tried doing a 9/11-esque storyline. I believe season 2 or 3. And I don't think it landed very well. I don't think that's what people needed from their Star Trek at the time. The storyline isn't necessarily bad, in my opinion, because it is very dark and it's very true to life. And Star Trek has always tried to write put what's happening in real life into a science fiction setting. Because it's always tried to be relatable, but that's not what people needed, I think, at the time from Star Trek. I think we needed more hope, and we needed more understanding and diplomacy from our Star Trek. Instead, they made it a war, and I don't think I don't think it was terrible, and I have very strong opinions about Enterprise. It's just not what people needed at the time, in my opinion.
Yeah. So there was a time where we didn't have any Star Trek. I mean, we're it's kind of funny. We're living in a time now where there is tons.
There is an overabundance of Star Trek. It's very accessible. Well, for some people, it's very accessible. Yeah, Enterprise didn't last very long. I think it lasted 4 seasons, and then we just had a long break.
We had a long break, and yeah, I mean. There was just nothing out there, and basically there had been a whole bunch of different rumors of things that were going to happen, and then finally Star Trek 09 was the next iteration of Star Trek.
Do you remember when Matt Damon was like, it was like a rumor that Matt Damon was going to be Captain Kirk? It was very brief. It was a blip. Oh wow, yeah,
That would have been something.
I was just like, oh my god, really? That'd be great, because like he was coming off the Bourne movies, I think, maybe this time, or maybe this first one, but he was on a high.
Oh yeah, he was on a big high. Yeah, Ultimatum was huge.
Yeah, but it was just like a blip. It was just a blip. I've always wondered how that casting would have gone down. But yeah, then they said, no, it's going to be pretty much all unknowns for the most part. And yeah, I'm the casting has always been very good, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, the casting is great. We'll talk about the casting is great. So the other thing too is like we've also kind of, I feel like in the 2000s and still basically to this day, we start like this is the era of the IP. And basically what that means is like if there's some type of intellectual property that has some type of perceived value by some entity that owns it, they're always going to look to try and rejuvenate that IP and make it sort of renewed for a new generation of people so they can start selling it again. And so that always kind of gets them into a conundrum of you know what they kind of tried to do with this film, as we'll kind of get into when we get into the plot, which is like, okay, so we have this thing, right, Star Trek, and there's some things that are very recognizable about it, right? So we have these characters like Kirk and Spock and McCoy, and you know Uhura, and it's like, okay, how do we both keep the characters that people know around, but also get people that are like 20 or 30 to play them? So we kind of get into this storytelling conundrum where it's like they want to do both. They want to get people that are 25 to play the character, but they want them to be believably like within the same realm as of story as the character that we've seen, like, you know, was played by William Shatner since like 1960 something.
Yeah,
You know,
1966, I believe. And
I,
the thing as well is that the last time we saw these characters was they were old. Like they were even talking about how old they had gotten and how they, oh man, I'm an admiral now. I probably shouldn't be doing this shit. You know, I'm getting too old for this shit, kind of thing.
yeah.
The last time we saw Kirk, he got blown up. You know, last time we saw Kirk, he got blown up and he died after leaving the Nexus. You know what I mean? So there, I wouldn't, I would have been in that room being like, oh fuck. I mean, the only way you could go was a prequel. The only way you could have. Also, you have to remember that Paramount and CBS owned different aspects of Star Trek, so it's not like they had a lot of they didn't have a lot of avenues to go down, honestly.
So yeah, and this gets into like they have now termed it what's it's called a requel, reboot sequel. Now those things are like Halloween, the new Halloween, Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends, Halloween whatever the hell, where
Yeah, I
it's
hate
like
those.
yeah. Scream, the new Scream movie, kind of made fun of that in a very nice meta way. Where it's like it's so funny too because they even say it in the movie. Well, we want it to be kind of still a continuation, but we want new people too. So we need to find some way to kind of balance the two. Yeah, there's been a lot of that stuff. And so did we know like before this movie came out like what they were doing in this film? Like
I feel like if you were in the know of who owned what, you would probably have some kind of inkling. But prequels weren't really, as far as I remember, prequels were not really a thing yet. I don't really remember many prequels prior to Star Trek 2009. There probably was one. There's probably something out there that I'm not remembering.
well, it's funny because we were talking about like probably the biggest prequels
Oh
before we
yeah.
the Star Wars
Oh,
prequels.
this little guy.
Yeah, the Star Wars,
I'm
which kind
oh,
of
what
did
kind of
not go
prequels
well.
were held? Well, I
It
mean,
kind of did not go well, honestly.
grossly. I mean, as far as
Oh yeah, they
like
made money.
making money go, like I'm sure it is technically successful as far as a monetary, scheme goes, because I felt like it was just a scheme, honestly. We got to film more toys. I'm George Lucas, and I don't wait. I should stop. I don't want people to start like getting pissed at me. Let me just before anybody gets pissed, I grew out of Star Wars. I grew into Star Trek, and there's nothing wrong with that. There should be absolutely nothing wrong with that. But yeah, so I guess that I should eat my words. There are obviously examples of prequels, and probably because JJ Abrams is so hard on for Star Wars, he was like, "Oh, well, why don't we just do this?" Or I don't know who came up with the idea, but
Yeah,
somebody. I think it's very suspicious that the man who went on to direct Star Wars directed a prequel. When the property he ended up working for had just come off of 3 prequels. So it's very convenient. It's a very, very, very convenient. But to answer your question, no, I don't. If you watch the theatrical trailer for Star Trek 2009, they don't give you any information of what's going on.
They
They
do
show
not.
you. They show you. It's such a wonderful trailer.
Yeah, it is.
It is such a wonderful trailer. I love it. It hooked me. It hooked everyone because this was a type of Star Trek we had never seen before, ever. Like this was just, especially in the realm of TOS. Especially in the realm of TOS. You have like the blue, yellow, and red costumes that you had never seen look so good before. It's not ill-fitting, it's not, you're not almost seeing her's panties every time she sits down, for Christ's sakes. But it was very exciting. I think everyone just got like wrapped up in the excitement of it. And why wouldn't you be? Like, I'll never forget seeing Star Trek 2009 in the theater for the first time. I will never forget that experience. It was amazing. It was a wonderful, nerdy, blessed communion of fun. It was just fun.
And I think this is another one of the appeals of doing the requel kind of film, is like there is that kind of palpable desire to have the thing work, honestly. And there's a lot of goodwill. We may eventually talk about another JJ Abrams sci-fi franchise film that had some goodwill behind it. Maybe started off strong and maybe things teetered out.
You mean like on. A New Hope 2.5?
Oh yeah. And so, like there's a lot of goodwill when you kind of start these things off. And so and I think, when we talk about the way that this film actually plays out, there's some things to like. There's some things maybe not to like. And maybe there's some things that if a person was not really into Star Trek, but they're familiar, they would just like it because they're like, this is a new thing. It's a new thing.
Exactly. Especially since it was just new. It looked better than Enterprise. It looked better than Nemesis. And honestly, most people had just grown up watching Next Generation, or not everyone who grew up watching Next Generation. We had plenty of Next Generation movies, but we hadn't seen Captain Kirk look this good in a long fucking time. Like we hadn't seen our original Enterprise look that pretty.
And when we talk about the VFX this movie are actually really insanely good.
They are fantastic.
They are fan-effing-tastic. Like there are some scenes in this that I just kind of like. It's really funny. I just like watch. I have fun watching this movie, and like you watch it, and I'm like, wait, this movie came out in 2009. And there's some stuff in this movie that looks better than stuff that's coming out today with massive budgets.
Yeah, like I remember watching just Batman versus Superman, for example. I'm just like, this looks like with shit.
With the Doomsday shit.
Just because you can does not mean you should. Like, we're not talking about that crock of shit, but we are. Yeah, the 2009 looks amazing, and we had just come off of the prequels. What, 2-3 years earlier?
Yeah, the last one's 2005.
Yeah, and this looks, and again, that's not necessarily because of any because they are less talented or anything like that. It's just, I think part of it is because technology, CGI just changes every single freaking day. It is constantly changing. I mean, when you look at Rogue One with
Rogue One,
Tarkin, I told Ryan that is an actor with someone else's face, and he was like, "What?"
Well, wait until you watch the Book of Boba Fett. I'm just gonna say that there's a character that they bring back, and it's kind of frightening because then you really start. It's like we've gotten to the point where they could bring back people.
Well, I know they did the Mark Hamill one. I know Luke is involved heavily. I saw some stills in that.
Ridiculously good.
It looked amazing. I was totally blown away by it. I think there is some there's some ethical things to go along with it, especially if the actors passed away. I don't know if I feel that comfortable with it in that regard. Tarkin, but I can't. But at the same time, I have to. Tarkin looked utterly fantastic.
Yeah,
he looked amazing, and I literally Ryan's whole head exploded when I was like, yeah, that guy's been dead for 30 years.
Exactly. He's been dead. He's
been dead.
Like, it's not like he died on the movie or something, and they were shooting half of it, and then they CGI'd the other.
Exactly. No, he's dead. I forget the name of that actor's who that actor was, but he was really good. I think he did a lot of what was it like horror movies too, like Christopher Lee did. I feel like he was part. What?
Ooh, which actor?
Tarkin.
Peter Cushing.
Peter Cushing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love his delivery. He always rolled his R's. And what was that? There's one line that he has. The rebellion. He would always roll it. I'm like, it's such like nobody talks that way anymore.
No. Except these hoity-toity British people, they only talk like that, right?
We will crush the rebellion in one fell stroke. You are all that's left of their old religion. I want to see a Tarkin Darth Vader movie. I want to see that shit.
You know, honestly, I would love it if they did a Vader movie. I really would be into that.
Bring Hayden Christensen back too. I mean, do it. I mean, freaking do it.
I'd love to see. To me, the thing that I'd want to see in a Vader movie is to like sort of see. So first off, I'm very sure. At least this is where I would go with it. Basically, the way the movie should start is like there are some Jedi who got out, and Vader is finding them and killing them. So there's a couple of people who still made it, and Vader's like killing them. And so like the movie should start off with like some planet, and then you see this person, and then we find out they're a Jedi, and then fucking Darth Vader shows up and they fight, and he kills them. And then he's like, I defeated them, and then he goes to his castle, and he's meditating and shit. And when he's meditating, he's thinking about all this stuff that happened to him in his past, and he's conflicted. But he's still going back to the dark side.
Oh, he's still gonna go through with all of his shit.
He goes through with it, but then we can like, again, all this stuff in Revenge of the Sith, we can kind of like, because the way that he turns in Revenge of the Sith is kind of a little quick.
Maybe which is wwhy I think they realized their mistake is like we started him way too young. This needs to be gradual.
Yeah, and that would be a place where we could do that, but I don't know if we'll ever see that. Probably not, but we are going to see Hayden Christensen again in Obi-Wan.
I'm very happy. I know we're supposed to be talking about Star Wars right now, but I've been watching Star Wars for like 6 days straight.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, Star Wars has ruined a lot of people. I feel really bad for Jake Lloyd and Hayden Christensen and the guy who played Jar Jar. Oh my god!
His life got totally fucked up.
I think I read somewhere he was ready to jump off a bridge.
Oh yeah,
he was ready to just jump off a bridge. That's 3 actors that Star Wars just was like fed all these promises to, and it's like. I think it's
not their fault at all. It's not their fault at all.
No, it's not their fault. Jake Lloyd was like 10. He was a little kid, and he didn't do a terrible job. He was just a kid who had never acted before. And it's just like I feel that's the same way I felt for the guy who played Han Solo, that actress who played Rose in the other ones. It's just Daisy Ridley left social media entirely.
The thing with the girl who played Rose,
I was just like this is why people don't like nerds sometimes. This is why. It's just
one of the craziest things I heard was like, so the girl who played what was it? It was Iron Man's kid in Endgame. They bullied her off social media. Like what?
She's a cute little nugget. How can you be mad at that?
Like
what? I love you 3000.
Yeah, I don't know.
Get the hell out of my I fucking hate nerds sometimes. I really do. I hate these nerds.
Understand. What would you even have to say to her?
What negative thing could you say about like a 6-year-old?
Yeah.
Like what is wrong with I just don't get it. I don't. I really just it's the same thing with how like Tom Hardy like went down what's like spiraled after Nemesis, and it's like it's not his fault. Like
no, not at all.
It's not his fault at all. Like I don't know why we're blaming these people.
Yeah, it sucks because it was great casting. It was
really great casting, and it's just again execution is everything, and it's just really it's not their fault. No new actor. Hayden Christensen did not accept the role of Anakin Skywalker because he thought it was going to be bad, or because he wanted it to be bad. It's just not. But people are gonna people.
Yeah, they are.
People
and
are
they
gonna
blame them for it. It's like, what? They had nothing to do with it.
exactly.
Anyway,
Star
so
Wars 2000.
yeah, so Star Trek. So
Star Trek.
that kind of gives you a lot of context as to like what environment this movie came into and sort of
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Yes.
to it. All right, so yeah, let's dive into the plot now. So this movie, like you talk about, every movie has like the first thing that any movie has to do is that it has to establish a tone at the beginning of a movie. You let the audience know, okay, this is what you're gonna get in this movie. Because if you don't establish the tone right away, or you start changing tones too much, people are gonna be like, what the hell? This movie, in this opening scene, lets you know this is not your daddy's Star Trek movie.
It establishes everything you need to know. Everything. It even gives you one character to follow. It doesn't like move around to like it's. I mean, it does. I mean, obviously, there's more than one person to follow, but it establishes who your point of reference is. I think very well, and why it matters, and why it's not just some guy willing to fucking nilly.
No, it's not. So we see this ship, the USS Kelvin, and they're doing this mission in space, and then there's this massive lightning storm, and then we see this guy. So I think his name is Captain Rabao, something like that. This cool dude. I like this guy. This guy was in Iron Man.
Yep, he was.
He played the villain. He's a cool guy.
Yeah, very good actor.
Yeah, very good actor. I feel like, I don't know. I feel bad. I wish we could see this guy more, but he's the captain of the ship, and it's kind of cool. And he's like, polarize the screen, and then they see this fucking massive ship coming out of something. Looks like a wormhole, black hole, something like that. And they're like, whoa, what is this thing? They immediately get attacked. So the USS Kelvin is getting decimated like immediately. And they're trying to do stuff. They're trying to put up their shields. They do not stand a chance. And so we see like they're blowing through their shields. We see like one of these decks explodes open. We see someone fly into space.
Yep.
This really gnarly like scene.
Hull breach. Yeah, those hull breaches are gonna get you, buddy.
That's a really like, again, this is not. I don't know if we seen someone get sucked out of the hole in the previous films.
I'm sure it's happened at least once. At least nothing this intense, because again, like the technology just wasn't there. Maybe we see them like the fans are blowing really hard, and then the strings pick up their feet and they're holding on to something. Maybe we saw something like that, but
yeah. Again, like you said, the intensity of this is like really high. This feels like we're, again, like you said, we're using the technology to depict these starship battles in a way that Star Trek had not done before.
And that they probably had tried to do like with a couple of the next gen movies and stuff like that, but it always was like the cube battle scene in First Contact is really good. We got to see some maneuvering and some really cool battle, stuff with that, but nothing like this, nothing this intense. I feel like.
Yeah, this stuff is really intense, and I mean it's thrilling. And the other thing we should talk about too is like the way that this movie is shot. There's a lot of solar flares, there's a lot of moving cameras, there's a lot of dynamic editing. It does not feel like something that's just standing still. It's like boom, 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 boom. It's very kind of MTV generation kind of stuff.
It doesn't really give you a moment to breathe. Yeah, no, and that's not a criticism. It's just like go, 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 go.
Yeah. So after this bombardment, they get hailed by this ship. I guess he's like, I forget what this guy. This guy has a name.
It's like a first officer.
The first officer guy, yeah, and he's like, oh hey, we want the classic. Oh hey, just come have a negotiation.
Now that we've totally disabled you,
yeah.
Now we can begin negotiations.
Yeah, I think he even says something like, "It would be wise for you to come," or something like basically saying like, either you do it or we're just gonna kill you. Like,
yeah, thanks. Now that you've given me literally no other option.
Yeah. Oh, let's negotiate a ceasefire.
It's like we never even got a chance to fire.
Yeah.
Like the Kelvin is not some kind of, it's not a Constitution class starship. This is like a science vessel or something.
It is, yeah.
It's like we're here to look at binary star systems.
Yeah. They're like literally like there to like look at this star. to like do some, to take some measurements or something, to get some data, and then they're like, "Whoa, dude, this thing just came out of like a wormhole, and then it just started shooting at us. We have no idea what to do."
What is the line? It's like, well, space is what? Disease and darkness wrapped. No, disease and danger wrapped in darkness and silence. So like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's what Bones says later in this movie. So then the Captain Rabao, he says, "Hey, you guy, come. Hey, wasn't it Chris Hemsworth? Hey, Chris Hemsworth, let's go over here.
Yeah, baby Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah. A lot less jacked than we see him.
Oh yeah, he's like tiny. He's got like a swimmer's build. He doesn't have like Thor build yet. This is way before Chris Hemsworth was famous.
Yeah. It again. This is another like good get. Like this cast is good, very good. I mean, the casting is like perfection. So anyway, so the two of them are walking. He's like, "Okay, evacuate the ship in 15 minutes if you haven't heard from me. Just get everyone to safety. Use the autopilot." And he's like, "But Captain, blah 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 blah." And he's like, "You're the captain now, Mr. Kirk."
Mr. Kirk.
And then he bounces.
And then the crowd goes wild.
Hold on a second. Hold on, Captain Kirk. Which Kirk is this?
No, exactly, because he looks like he could be young James
right?
Kirk.
He could be like, what if we're watching some sort of alternate version of reality where this is Kirk's first mission? I mean, is that too far from what could have been the reality in the timeline?
Probably only because like through exposition of other films and TV shows, we know what his first commission as first officer would have been. But maybe there was something before that he just didn't talk about. Who knows? Maybe it lasted a week and then he got transferred or some shit. Like it happens. But yeah, I distinctly remember being like, what is happening?
Yeah, and this movie, again, we'll probably later talk about like the kind of the mystery box idea, where you're just like setting up all these things that make the audience question things, or like you kind of use their knowledge against them to make them wonder what's going to happen next.
Yeah, because if you do that, then we might not know, even though we know, like, if this was James T. Kirk, we'd be like, okay, well, he's definitely going to get out of it because he has to get to the Enterprise. But we don't know what's going to happen in between that. We
don't. We have no idea. Or what's the route for him to get?
It builds the suspense.
Yeah.
It definitely builds the suspense.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, again, this scene is really, really brilliant. It's really well done. So then, the captain boards the ship and he's taken to basically be questioned. And he's like, "Are you familiar with the ship?" And he's like, "No." It's this very small, kind of tiny ship, like two kind of rotating cylinders or whatever.
Yeah, it's like a one-person, like not passenger ship, but it's a one-person, like it's like a Cessna.
Exactly. And it's like, "Do you know the location of Ambassador Spock?"
And he's like, "What?"
I'm not familiar. He's like, I'm not familiar with Ambassador Spock. Okay, so now no one knows Spock either, right? So now we kind of know a time, right?
Okay, yeah. Now it's like, okay, now we're establishing that this is pre. Spock's not an ambassador yet. The design of the ship does also give some things away as well. Again, if you're into the shipbuilding and the models and just like knowing what the ships look like in certain points in Star Trek history, that does kind of give you a reference point. But because the ship is a very unique design that I think we've seen something vaguely similar before, it's still very different. The costumes, the uniforms could be past, they could be future. It's very the sound effects, though. The sound effects are what at least can key you in to whether or not it's in the past or the future, because they sound very it's more like the woo or the beeping. Like the sound editing was very, very good because it can give you a reference point of past or future.
Yeah. And so then he asks, "What is the current star date?" And he's like,
"Your clock doesn't work, bro."
2:33:04.
Where are you from? I love that. He's like, "Where are you from?"
And then Nero like,
"When are you from?"
Yeah. That would have been the pertinent question. And so then Nero just decides to kill him. Like he takes out a spear. I don't know what the term is for it. Like
Skewers him.
yeah, he skewers him with his spear.
It's like a trident almost.
Yeah, it is like a trident. And so they were monitoring like on the Kelvin. They were monitoring this guy's like basically his pulse, and it was like, oh my god, he's like really scared.
He's dead.
And they see like, oh, yeah, they literally see him die, and then they start firing on him again. And so now Kirk is in charge, and so he's like, okay, everybody get out, just get out of the ship, or we'll have to, evacuate basically. And so then we see Kirk's pregnant wife,
Winona. That was his wife's name, Winona.
Yeah, being rolled through the shuttle bay.
And then this is where you're like, wait a second.
Oh, now I understand.
Kirk didn't have no baby at this point in time. Like, maybe, yeah. But
so now we know that's James T. Kirk.
Dun dun dun.
On this ship,
which is just like so good.
Yeah, which is really kind of...
It's just like so. It's so tragic and it's so tense because you're like, okay, now we know that this is not James T. Kirk. This has got to be, and she even calls him George at one point, I think.
Yeah. George, are you coming?
Oh my god, it's so sad. It is so fucking sad. It is just like, I felt more emotion, more love in this marriage that I saw for 5 minutes than I did with anything between Padme and Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell he loves her because like he's making some choices that.
Oh my god, he's crying at one point, and he's just like, "Oh my god!" I'm like tearing up just thinking about it.
Yeah,
it's such a good scene.
I feel like you said before that you always like cry when you watch.
I cry, absolutely cry every time I see the opening of 2009. Every fucking time, because it's just so tragic and it's so sweet, and it's just not bittersweet in a way because they don't. Oh my god.
No, I mean it has that true emotional thing because like he knows his son, and like so the other captain says, "Oh, use autopilot." The autopilot fails.
Exactly, he can't leave.
He's controlling the whole ship, and so he's guiding the ship into the what's this other ship called? The Narada. He's guiding it into the Narada while firing off destroying all the torpedoes, and he knows he's dead, and he's like oh, and he just like. Collision course imminent, and there's like
and again that's something else that starts to key you in as an audience if you know anything about Star Trek, if you know anything about James T. Kirk, is that this is not how George Kirk died. This is not it. Kirk had a brother. Kirk had a brother at one point. He had a nephew. Like he had a whole family, like a whole nuclear family. That was a different life. This is a collision course for something, no pun intended, a collision course for something very, very different. And that's when you as an audience are like, what am I watching?
What am I watching? It's totally different. And yeah, it's like, and what's great too is so like he's flying the ship, he's gonna crash it into the Narada, and then there's like a common link between him and his wife, and then he like hears his son being born. And you hear the baby, and the baby's crying. It's like, oh yay, it happened, blah blah blah. And they're like, oh, what should we name him? It's like, I think she says,
let's name him after your dad, which is Tiberius. And oh my god, like when every time he says no, that's the worst. I'm just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little verklempt over here. Like it's happening.
Yeah. It's like let's name him after your father. Let's name him Jim.
Oh my god, bullet to the freaking heart right there.
And then he's like, I think he just says like I love you or something like that, and then boom.
Yeah, it just gets cut off.
She sees the explosion.
And it's like this. She has her baby, which is supposed to be like the best moment of a mother's life is when you actually hold your baby in your arms and you put him on your chest, and you're just like, holy shit, I did it. But now she's doing it under extreme circumstances and loses her husband in the process. So she can't even really you can't even really enjoy the moment of having your baby. Like, and that's really sad.
No, it's you would probably think about it, and
his birthday will be the worst day of her life, remembered forever. I mean, unless she takes the route of, like, oh, I have my son. I lost my husband, but I have my son, so that is something to be grateful for. But still, like, to process that, to go through that,
it's devastating.
It's absolutely devastating.
Yeah, and then that's basically it. And then we see the shuttles, flying off into space. Like, and this whole thing is happening, and there's like this massive sun star in the background, and we see the Narada, and we see the little ships.
Lots of lens flares. Oh my god, there's so many lens flares.
This scene shows like this is a completely different era of Star Trek. The things that they're doing with the technology, with the VFX, it's like leaps and bounds above what we saw in Nemesis. Like
absolutely
massive.
Anything we saw with the original like TOS cast movies.
So the other thing too is I really love the score of this movie.
It's really good. Michael, I can't remember his last name. Yeah, he is. Yeah. I love that he names his tracks. Like one of them is new cars, new ship smell or something like that. Like I love that he names his tracks. Mm-hmm. It's not just named after the scene. He gives them very quirky names, which I really like. He's a great composer.
There's even like a really good, like, I feel like basically what kind of defines this Star Trek films is like there's this overture that plays in front of all the films. And it's sort of, I guess, really, I would say just emblematic of what these films are about. It just evokes the sense of, oh, this is the Kelvin timeline films.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think the track is like Enterprising Young Men. It's like a sort of version of that.
Yeah, it's really good.
We'll hear Enterprising Young Men many times in this film, and it never gets old. I mean, he also scored, like, he's a really amazing composer. He also recently scored the Batman.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, his Batman score is like phenomenal. So he's a supreme talent. So then some time later, I guess it's around 10 years, we go to Iowa. And, it's the Great Plains, and we see a young Kirk driving a Corvette down this desolate road, and he is blasting it, and he's like in the car, and then someone calls him, and he answers the call, and someone's like, "Yeah, your mom's gonna be really mad."
You think your mom, just because your mom's off world, you can steal it? That car's an antique, you little shit, basically. Yeah. I assume it's like a boyfriend or his stepdad or something like that, which, like, he really should not be stealing that car, because that's more than an antique in the 23rd century. That is archaic.
In the 23rd century, that has to be like one of the rarest things you can, like, a Corvette is already kind of like hard to come by.
A one in pristine mint condition. Yeah, I mean, they're not my favorite person. Well, they're cool. They're cool, but they're not my favorite. But yeah, he steals that. He steals it all right, because he's a little rebellious, I think.
He's a little, yeah.
What happens when you don't have a strong father figure in your life? It's really sad.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk a lot about this Kirk and the father figures and the lack of father figures, and like the fact that his dad died, and like you said, he would have had a brother, he would have had those people are all gone. And he kind of has to live up to what his dad did. Yeah, but we'll get into that anyway. So, like, Kirk, he's driving his car, and he sees with
Johnny, that. Like, but with the Beastie Boys.
Yeah, he hangs up on this other guy, and then he says, "Oh, media," and he plays Sabotage.
Oh my god, that it is just so good. It's so good.
Yeah, and so he's driving. He sees like Johnny or some kid who's like trying to drive.
Just like, who gives a fuck about Johnny? He's just there.
Yeah.
I never made it out of Iowa.
It was like a deep cut or something. I don't know. But anyway, like, "Hey, Johnny," and he's like, it's literally what he says. And he's driving, and then a cop comes after him.
Pull over, citizen.
Pull over, citizen. Yeah. And so he decides to drive the car off of a cliff.
Yeah, he does that.
So he drives his car off a cliff, but he like jumps out at the last second so that he doesn't, die. And he barely escapes. And then the cop's like, "Citizen, what is your name?" "My name is James Tiberius Kirk."
So yeah, you
were. Yeah. So that's kind of cool. I mean, I guess, I don't know. It's just like showing us like who he is at this point.
Like who this Kirk is at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. So then we go to Vulcan, and we get to meet a young Spock, and he's in these little Vulcan pods where they they do all their logic training or whatever you want to call it. We saw that. What was it? I think it was that Search for Spock where we saw him on a computer doing basically the same thing.
Very similar concept. It's just a one console thing. It's probably just like a home PC of sorts. But yeah, doing something very similar. Asking rapid fire questions of various different topics and stuff. Like, what's the square root of blah 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 blah? Uranus. This, that, and the other thing. But yeah, so he's in his little pod with some other little Vulcan twerps.
Yeah, some Vulcan bullies come. This is the 35th time you tried to enlist them or must them response. And so they decide to attack him because he's like...
Yeah, they're trying to invoke an emotional response because they think he's sub-Vulcan because he's half Vulcan. It's like super racist. And you're really racist kids, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's like... I don't know. It's like this whole situation is kind of like interesting because I don't know if anyone's ever really like talked about like did they like deal at all with these other people?
Probably not, no.
Did they ever like be like, hey, don't be racist? like that's what I wonder.
The thing you have to remember about Vulcans is that they can be exceptionally high and mighty. That's why they don't talk. That's why they don't communicate with other races until they've achieved warp drive. That's where the Prime Directive comes from. It comes from Vulcans. They don't make first contact for that very specific reason because they would see us as completely primitive, totally primitive, inferior. They can be very ignorant, exceptionally ignorant. But every now and then they also have reasons for that, is because they're also trying to protect other species from being completely destroyed. If you go out into space too soon, too deep into space, you are going to encounter things that you are not equipped to understand. And that's what a lot of first season of Enterprise deals with, is that Archer hates the Vulcans and he's super xenophobic towards them. But they're like, we have our reasons for doing this. But they are technically stunting their advancement, which isn't cool either. But no, they're pretty racist sometimes too, because they do see themselves as very above a lot of other species.
Yeah.
But with that being said, they also have a lot of respect for other species as well. So it's weird.
Yeah.
They definitely look down on humans a lot more than most other species.
Interesting. So the thing that gets him pissed off, so they call his dad a traitor, and they call his mother a whore, a human
Pretty
whore.
Extreme. Yeah. I find that to be very primitive language from a Vulcan child, quite frankly.
Yeah. And quite frankly, Spock decided that he was going to punch this dude in the face, so they get into a fight. And then later we, see this conversation that he has with his dad, and his dad, I don't know, he just kind of like gives him the Vulcan sort of
version of, you shouldn't have done that. You need to be above your emotions. You need to repress them. And Spock does something that's actually very poignant. He's like, you married my mom. Like,
why did you do that?
Yeah, why did you do that?
It was logical.
It was logical and it was diplomatic. It was a diplomatic decision, not an emotional decision. And it was just like, was it though? Because Sarek, you marry a lot of humans. You marry another one after her. So I think you just like humans.
Yeah, he's got a thing for humans, probably. And then so kind of the thing that Spock has to deal with in this film is like he feels like he has to choose a side. Is choose the Vulcan side or choose the human side or choose another side. Fulfilling his own destiny, stuff like that. And that's kind of what happens in this conversation, which is interesting to see. Because, I don't know if we've ever really gotten into this type of stuff with Spock, dealing with racist Vulcan.
Yeah, I mean, Sarek says it very well. He's like, you're a child of two worlds, and you gotta pick a side, dude. You gotta choose who you want to be. Do you want to be human? Do you want to be in touch with your Vulcan or your human emotions, because they're very complicated. That's going to be a really rough road for you to go down, because Vulcans were at one time very primitive and only led by emotions and were very aggressive. Or are you going to choose the path of logic, which is super chill and join the Vulcan Science Academy like every other Vulcan does?
Yeah, exactly.
But what's interesting about this version of Spock, because he is young, he's not at the point where he was in the Prime universe. He doesn't want to upset his mom. Like, he takes her opinion very seriously.
Yes.
She just wants him to be happy.
Yeah, and speaking of which, the mom is Winona Ryder, which is another fun casting decision.
It's an interesting casting choice. Yeah.
What's funny too, like, because this is before she did Stranger Things.
Yep.
Which I feel like really kind of propelled her back.
Yeah, this pushed her back into the spotlight a little bit. Yeah. It wasn't a leading role; it was a supporting role. And she's playing a mom. Mm-hmm. Which a lot of women in Hollywood get pigeonholed into doing. But she's there, and she's not stealing any of the moments, though. She's very aware that this is a scene about Spock. You know what I mean? So
it's just very cool to see her playing Spock's mom.
It was cool. It's cool seeing Winona Ryder in Star Trek. I gotta say, I love Winona. I've always loved her.
Yeah, and so Spock, he's conflicted about doing, and one thing he talks about is like doing Kulinar and purging emotion, because he's like, well, I wouldn't, if I do that, I don't want you to feel like it's me sort of exiling my human part and like feeling like the Vulcan part is like superior or whatever. And
he doesn't want it to feel like a rejection of her or anything like that, which is, I think this is one of the things that makes Spock so relatable as a character, is that I think a lot of people can relate to what he's going through, what he's feeling. If you grow up in a household with two different religions from either parent, if you're the child of maybe even an interracial couple, like you're a child of two worlds, where do you fit in, kind of a thing. And I think that's one of the things that makes Spock transcend a lot of generations.
Yeah, totally. And she's like, oh, I'll always be proud of you, which is very nice. So then Spock is before this, I don't know, this advisory board or whatever you want to call these people.
It's like the Vulcan Science Academy, like, admissions board.
And they're like, oh, we're so impressed. It's amazing what you've succeeded in doing despite your disadvantage. He's like, wait, what?
To what disadvantage? No, to which disadvantage are you referring to?
Yeah. It's like your human mother.
Don't talk about mommy.
Yeah, it's good cut to his. So this is the thing that we're gonna like. I never noticed this before, but like I guess on the millionth time, when people go after his mom, this Spock reacts.
Yeah.
That's how you incite him to react in some way. You say something about his mom. So the bully said something about his mom, so he got punched in the face. This old elf-looking dude said something about his mom, so he gave him the proverbial "F-U."
Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.
Out. Spock out, bitch.
There's some really fun stuff in this scene. He's like, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to decline. He's like, no Vulcan has ever declined admission to this academy. It's like, well, as I am half human, your record remains untarnished. He's like, well, like, did you feel the need to do this because of your emotional need to rebel? He's like, no, I just want to say thank you and live long and prosper.
Peace.
And then he goes to
mic drop.
Yeah, he drops the mic, and so then we go back to Iowa, but now we're at a bar, and we see Uhura, played by the amazing Zoe Saldana, who has played many aliens that have different skin tone colors. She's played green people, she's played blue people, and now she's just herself, her awesome self.
Yes.
And then we see our Kirk in this time. It's the Chris Pine. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Is there any other things you want to say about Chris
He's
Pine?
a fucking asshole. That's what he is.
It's Kirk.
Yeah, I don't like him. I don't like him until we get to Beyond.
This Kirk, yeah, I can see that. This Kirk, so we see them flirt, like he's flirting with her, and like he's saying like all this stuff, like I think she calls him like a hillbilly or some shit.
She calls him a hillbilly. She's like, "Oh, I thought people like you only had sex with farm animals." And he actually does have a funny line where he's like, "Not only."
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's kind of a cute scene, but I just think I would have never have like given this guy a second glance because he's already drunk.
Yeah.
And he's just being like he's just being gross. Like, go away. Like, she's not into it, dude. We know what her is into, and you ain't it, boo.
Totally. Yeah, he's just a total degenerate. He's like, oh, I'm into linguistics. You have no idea what it is. Like, oh yeah, I know. It means you have a talented tongue.
It's like, ew. Ew.
Yeah. So then Kirk gets into a fight with some dudes. And they again, like some of the stuff, I don't know. This is an interesting way to present the characterization of him, right? He's drunk, he's hitting on this chick, he's being really blatant, he's kind of an asshole. There's like 4 guys. He's like, yeah, me and my friends are like, you need to go away. He's like, well, if there's 4 of you, like, why don't you get some more guys and then we'll make it a fair fight. So then the fight breaks out and he's punching these guys and then he starts getting his ass kicked. And he accidentally grabs his boobs too in this whole situation.
There's JJ fucking Abrams for you.
Oh man. So
no, Chris, what I think you should do is when you trip, you should grab her chest. Zoe, you good with that? Roll camera. It's like it's such an immature thing to put in a movie, in my opinion. I just think it's super immature. She could have just moved out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, this is a very interesting thing to do to build up the characterization of this person. Drunk bar fighting. Anyway, so after they're like, this dude was about to like just destroy Kirk, just end his whole life, and then hey, look who shows up. It's Mr. Pike, Christopher Pike. And so he steps in, he stops the fight, he tells everyone to leave, and then him and Kirk have a conversation at a table. And so again, this is like, so Spike character is interesting because like in the show, like how much do they actually interact in the show?
They didn't. Really. So Captain Pike was obviously played by Jeffrey Hunter. He was supposed to be the actual captain of Star Trek, but audiences and I think probably producers were just like, yeah, we just don't. He's really sad. He just seems really serious, and we want someone who can probably be just like a little bit more fun. So they got rid of Jeffrey Hunter, and subsequently the character Captain Pike. They introduced Captain Kirk, and I believe the episode's called "Where No Man Has Gone Before." That's the first time I think we see Captain Kirk. And then we revisit. God damn it! Then we revisit Captain Pike in the Menagerie Part 1 and 2, which is basically just a recap of the episode "The Cage" that he was in, the original pilot. But at this point, he has suffered a very tragic accident, and he is basically a I don't want to say vegetable because I think that's kind of rude. He can't really use his body anymore. His mind is still very active, but he's basically trapped in this body that is virtually useless to him. And yeah, I think he became a fleet admiral or something like that. I think it was a fleet admiral he got promoted to. And then he goes and he lives the rest of his life on a planet called Talus. Based only on the fact that Spock was like really good friends with Captain Pike. Like really good friends. And they explore that way more in Discovery. But yeah, Captain Pike always kind of got the shaft.
Yeah.
In my opinion, personally, he never really got his opportunity because Jeffrey Hunter's great in The Cage, in my opinion. I thought he was a great captain. He was very serious. He was thinking of leaving Starfleet in The Cage because there had been a mission that went really wrong, and he's tired of choosing who lives and who dies, basically. And he's at this crossroads. And by the end of the episode, he realizes that he doesn't want to stay in Starfleet. But him and Kirk really didn't have an interaction. Pike had a relationship with Spock. He didn't really have a relationship with Kirk. Kirk says at one point, I met Captain Pike at this place, this party or some kind of ceremony, but they didn't have this mentor-mentee, Obi-Wan, Anakin fucking relationship.
Yeah. So this Pike and this Kirk have a totally different relationship.
Absolutely different. And I must say, Bruce Greenwood is very good as the character.
He is good, yeah.
I do like Bruce Greenwood. He was a very good Pike.
It almost makes you want to like see some more of stuff of him as a captain, honestly. On a certain level.
I would have been down with having Bruce Greenwood being Captain Pike. We are getting a Pike show.
With what's his name?
Anson Mount.
Anson Mount, yeah.
Anson Mount is playing. He was also phenomenal as. I don't think personally, this is just me, one is not better than the other. Bruce Greenwood was fantastic as Captain Pike, and Anson Mount is equally as good. One is not better than the other. It's great. I love that I can say that.
Yeah. So and again, like, so one of the things we're talking about is like this Kirk, so his dad's dead, and so there's this hole in his life because his dad died to save him, and that causes a lot of things to happen, right? So his dad's gone, so he has no real father figure in his life other than, you know, whoever that dude was on that phone. Right?
Just probably a boyfriend or something.
Not a person you want to look up to.
Well, he did steal his car. He did steal his antique Corvette and ruin it. I probably would be pretty pissed too. So
yeah, but why did he do it? Why did he steal the car?
I mean, we don't know why he stole it. He could have just been a rebellious little shit for all we know.
He probably was.
He also could have just been like, I don't want to have a relationship with you. You're not my father, kind of a thing. Because this guy could have been a totally nice person. We don't know. Yeah. Or he could have been a dick.
And so Pike is a kind of a character that's kind of sliding into this father role, mentor role, right? And so they have a conversation, and you know, Pike says a whole bunch of stuff that's kind of funny. He's like,
I dare you to do better.
Dare you to do better. Yeah, that was a good one.
That's a great line.
He also says something like, "Oh, do you enjoy being the only genius level repeat offender in the Midwest?" Something like that.
Why is he like? What is he repeat offending about? Like, that's also kind of weird.
Probably some drunken disorderly. It seems like that's Kurt's.
Public intoxication.
Yeah. Public intoxication, drunken disorderly. Probably public nudity at least once.
Yeah, he definitely would have gone. This Kirk would have gone streaking.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think that he was probably caught with an Orion out somewhere, and the cops arrested him.
Probably.
If I had to guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Pike basically ends this conversation by saying, your father was captain for 12 minutes. In that time, he saved 800 lives, one of which was you. I dare you to do better. And then he just walks away. He's like,
that's a tall order, Captain Pike. That's a pretty tall order.
And here's the thing, like that's kind of daunting, right?
Yeah.
So he has to live up to his dad, who is, I mean, basically became a legendary person, right? We'll see later, like this is kind of an interesting thing too, because like, well, I mean, he didn't create it for this reason, but the Kobayashi Maru test, he evokes his dad at some point later in this movie in regards to the Kobayashi Maru test. And so, I mean, it's not that he inspired it, but it's kind of like a teachable moment. It's like, yeah, I mean, you will be faced with certain death at times, and you have to know how to handle it, just like your dad did. Anyway, so yeah, and then we get now there's this one scene, one shot, and it's in the trailer, and I think it's a little bit more elongated in the trailer than what we get in this movie. But I feel like this is what really kind of, to me, sells this idea of like how they're doing Star Trek in this. Is like, so Kirk's kind of thinking this over, and he gets on his bike, his motorcycle, and he goes to some shipyard, and he's watching the Enterprise being built. And at that point, he basically just decides to do it.
Yeah, he just was like, okay, I'm sold.
That's just like really cool world building too, to like see this ship being built on Earth. And and just like that's the world that they live in. Like they're building starships on the planet.
Yeah, in Iowa too, apparently. Let's do it. Probably because it's really empty.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, most people probably moved out. So there's a lot of free space and like stuff like that. Cheap construction costs.
Yeah, let's just do it.
Yeah, and so then, Kirk goes to the recruitment shuttle and he says something like funny to Pike. He's like, yeah, well, I'll do it. Because like Pike's like, yeah, you can have your own ship in 4 years. And then Kirk's like, oh, I'll do it in 3 years or whatever.
Okay, sure. Whatever, dude.
And then we get to meet on the ship McCoy. We get to see
probably
McCoy.
The best casting in the whole movie, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This is the best casting. Not only does he look like DeForest Kelly, but he got his manner. It's not a caricature. Like he sounds like him. He's got, because I think McCoy was from Georgia or something like that.
Gets a Georgian accent.
He does have a little bit of a twang to his voice, which kind of just helped build the character a little bit more. And yeah, he's just like, he's not. I don't remember McCoy hating being in space, though. I know that he always was a little like jumpy and stuff like that, but I don't think he had like this tremendous fear or anything like that.
No, probably not.
Probably not. I mean, again, we have to remember that these are different characters, so something could have happened in his timeline, in the Kelvin timeline, that precipitated his fear of space. We just don't know. But yeah, he's not excited.
He's not excited, and like, yeah, that one lady's like, sit down or I'll make you sit down or whatever.
He's all grumpy. He's like,
yeah.
I was Ian Moore in Lord of the Rings, right? Like,
yeah.
You know who I am.
And he has that great line, space is disease and danger wrapped in darkness and silence.
He also has a great line where the ex took the whole planet.
Yeah. I got nowhere else to go.
I'm just going to leave. Like, she got the whole damn planet. Like, how bad was that marriage then?
Pretty bad.
Oh Jesus.
All I got left is my bones.
All I got left is my bones. But the thing is, he goes to San Francisco to train to be in Starfleet, so he doesn't leave the planet for very long.
Yeah. Do we ever know why he's called Bones? Like in the prime time?
It's like they used to call doctors sawbones because they would literally saw your legs off with a saw. That's what they used to call doctors, old sawbones.
Wow.
Okay. That's why funny. He had his nickname. That's the only reason why else would you give a doctor the nickname Bones? It's also just cool.
It just reminds me of the Doc Holliday stuff. Like every person, because someone's old when they're like, oh, that guy, his name's blah 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 Holiday. Oh, Doc Holliday. It's like everyone whose last name is Holiday, there's some old dude who calls him Doc Holliday, no matter what.
Oh yeah, that's I'm sure they get really sick of it too.
Yeah, totally. Anyway, okay, so then we jump 3 years into the future. And then we get to catch up with the Narada, this ship, and Nero's like there, and his first mate or whatever, Aiel, I think that's the dude's name. He's like, oh hey, something's happening now, and it's like, oh, I came to the coordinates as you requested, but like nothing's happening. It's like, what should we do? It's like we're gonna wait, like we've been doing for 25 years, because I'm gonna need to save that.
So you've just been floating out there doing dick for 25 years, dude. Like, it's gotta be pretty boring existence.
Yeah.
Like, at no point in 25 years did he actually have any self-reflection whatsoever. I find that very difficult to believe. I feel like that just makes him very one-dimensional. I don't like Nero as a villain.
He's super one-dimensional. I mean, I'd say upon the last couple of viewings, at least for me, yeah, there's a lot of problems.
25 years.
He just did nothing.
And he just did nothing. At no point he encountered maybe another species and was like, wow, this is actually a really nice planet. Maybe we'll just like settle here for a little bit. Then he ends up having a whole other life. It's just like, I know we wouldn't have a villain or a movie if he did anything like that, but I'm just saying 25 years of zero self-reflection. That is impossible. That is literally impossible.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like there's at least, when I watched it this time, there's a sensible justification for like what he wanted to do. So his motivation, I think, kind of makes sense. But there's a whole lot of stuff for like, wait, yeah, like you said, like you guys spent 25 years in the past, and you did what? Nothing. You just didn't do anything. You guys were just hanging out, waiting.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it makes it when you really get down to the nuts and bolts of it, it makes no sense whatsoever. And I know if we have to get to A to Z, and there's a lot of letters in between A and Z, but like none of the other guys at one point were just like, I've been out here for 20 years already, and I'm lonely. And did you know that Romulan's here
Yeah, it's
in this
still.
timeline? Why don't we go there?
Well, so one thing. So he does say at some point, "Oh, we stand apart." Him and the Romulan Empire.
Yeah, but can we really take his word that he tried encountering them? I mean, I know at
Now,
this point in time, the Romulans wouldn't tell Starfleet or the Federation, like, yeah, we encountered this rogue alien,
Romulan.
this rogue Romulan ship from the future. I know that they probably wouldn't, but then in the benefit of self-interest, the Romulans are very selfish. I feel like they probably would have shared that information.
One thing I think that could have helped with that is just like, so there's a point later where we find out that this ship, they kill like 37 Klingon ships, which is like insane. That's insane, honestly. Just to show like the scale of how much power the ship has, basically. Now, I almost feel like it would have been better if it was like they destroyed Romulan ships, because then like, oh, they're
Shit's
not
going down.
like they're killing
Yeah.
Romulans. Like they're killing Romulans too. Like if that was happening, like, oh yeah, so we found like a string of these X number of incidents. So one was they destroyed some Klingons, one was they killed Romulans, and then one was they were somewhere else, some other Federation planet, and they killed some people. Then that would kind of make more sense, I think, because then we know, okay, so they're killing everybody. They have a problem with everything.
Yeah, they have no qualm with killing Romulans or Klingons or anything like that. I think would have been a little bit more interesting is if maybe this rogue ship was kind of like almost like a Black Pearl type situation. Oh, it's almost like a ghost ship. Maybe it became more like a ghost ship story in space. Like, yeah, we don't know, there's, and if he is attacking, Romulans and Klingons, it might that would build the mystery a little bit more, because both of those species are so tight-lipped when it comes to dealing with the Federation at this point. So maybe it's just coming out in whispers and bars and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it would have been more interesting if it was more like just like a ghost story. Oh yeah, we don't know if it's actually real or not.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm just like imagining like a drunk Kirk next to some dudes like, yeah, I saw this ship.
It destroyed everybody.
And I barely escaped. And he's like, what?
Yeah, like I barely escaped with my life or something like that. And Kirk is just like, yeah, okay. But then he's like, yeah, it was like a lightning storm in space. And that is what you can still have that be like the catalyst that makes them realize, oh, I think I know what this is.
Yeah. But we didn't get any of that.
No, we didn't get that. So I feel like we come up with really good alternative ideas, though.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can always just imagine in our head that he killed some.
Fan fiction.
Exactly. So then, they're there, they're waiting, and then suddenly a black hole opens up, and we see this temporal disturbance, and then the little ship that we saw kind of at the beginning of the movie comes out, and Nero's like kind of happy. He's like, "Welcome back, Ambassador Spock," or whatever.
And everyone's like, "What?"
That's Spock? What? So then, it's Starfleet. So Kirk is like talking to Bones. He's like, "Oh yeah, dude, I'm gonna take the Kobayashi Maru test again. Just watch, bro." And then we see like he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna pass it this time. Don't worry, I'm gonna pass it." It's like, dude, it's not gonna be any different. No, this time it's gonna be different. Okay, whatever. So then we see Kirk banging the Orion, the Orion girl. What was her name? Jalia or something like that?
I don't fucking know. Did they even give her a name? I don't even know.
Not the movie. I mean, there's some other. I read some other synopsis where she was named, but not in the film. No. Anyway,
that's nice.
Yeah. So we talked about Orions before, right? They're the pirate people.
Yeah, they're basically pirates. They lead you to believe that men are actually the highest on the food chain and women are super subservient, but it's actually the total opposite. It's like a switcheroo kind of thing. They lure you in with the women because they produce these pheromones and all that other shit. It's It's very sexist. But yeah, they're the green women of Star Trek.
Yeah.
They have since given them a much more interesting things to do. But yeah, they're a thing.
What could be more interesting than being in your underwear?
A lot actually.
By the way, we
I know it's hard for JJ Abrams to imagine that women can be more than just. And in the same scene, Uhura gets into her underwear too. I would just like to add that he has Uhura undress as well for no reason whatsoever. And but yeah, she's coming off a long shift. Maybe she's gonna get into her sweatpants and shit. I don't fucking know. But like, she just gets totally nude. Like, not totally nude. She's got bra on. But like, it's so fucking unnecessary. It's just, but this is him. This is the movie pushing this Kirk is just a womanizing frat boy, which he really isn't. Most of the time, Kirk's, at least I think, and I know other people can just roll their eyes at this, most of the time Kirk's relationships are fairly intellectually based. He doesn't just go for any broad, really. He does have a type. Most of the women he dates are smart women. And I'm not saying this Orion isn't a smart woman. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm just like, there is usually a certain substance beyond a woman just being in her underwear. Sometimes he forms emotional connections too. Like, if there's one episode, it's a very good episode, but basically there's this woman and she's basically asking him, do you think you would ever like settle down and have a family? And Kirk's just like, no, this ship is the only woman I'll ever actually really love. Like, this is what I love doing, being out here, and nothing will ever fulfill me as much as that. That's a huge emotional conversation for him to be having with a potential love interest. But this movie just pushes the womanizing frat boy image, and it's just boring. It's just a boring image. And another reason why I just don't like Kelvin Kirk.
Yeah. And they
that
hit
was
us
a lot.
over the
I'm
head.
sorry.
That was good because, like, it's again, this is what we're talking. This is what the characterization that they're giving this Kirk is portraying to us, right? We see him drive a thing off a cliff. We see him in a bar fight, flirting with Uhura. We see him now making out with this Orion girl, and then seeing, Uhura again in her underwear. And
when he's still like, what's your first name? You can literally look up her name in the fucking Starfleet catalog. There's so many ways to access what her first name is. But he's like, tell me what your first name is. Tell me what your first... Like, it's none of your business. She's under no obligation to tell you what her name, age, or gender, or identity, or anything is, dude. Maybe she's just not into you. Sorry.
She's definitely not into him. She's into Vulcans.
Anyway. Yeah, your ears need to be a little more pointier than that, buddy.
So then we got Kirk doing the Kobayashi Maru test. And he cheats on it. This is sort of like a infamous thing that is talked about in Wrath of Khan.
Yes.
And we're kind of basically seeing it. And so, yeah, like, they're doing the test, and then, like, they get attacked by the warbirds. Something happens, there's a glitch, and then suddenly the warbirds have no shields, and he's like, one torpedo each. We have to be efficient. He blows them up, and then
there's no subtlety to the fact that he is cheating. Anyone could tell he is cheating. And the fact that he's so surprised there is an inquiry makes him seem so dumb. It's so blatantly obvious. And again, I understand that these are two very different Kirks. But some subtlety to the fact that you're cheating on a really important test would probably be appropriate.
Yeah, yes. So is that
the arrogance is too much?
Would you say that is your problem with the way this scene is portrayed? Because, like, again, in the Prime timeline, he does this.
Yeah, he totally does it. And that I don't... But the way he explains it to David, the lesson he's trying to teach him is that I don't like to lose, is handled just more differently. And that could be because the Kirk explaining it to his son is a far more mature Kirk, is an experienced Kirk. He's been a captain. So again, I am aware that these are two different men in two different timelines at different points in their life. but the portrayal is it's too arrogant. It's too like,
Yeah.
ha, ha, ha,
And he's
look what
like
I did, and
eating.
I'm gonna get away with it. No, you're not gonna get away with it. You're
He's eating
literally being
apples.
observed. This isn't like a written test. You might be able to like, oh, there are my notes. Like, you're literally being observed by the guy who wrote the Kobayashi in this timeline, wrote the Kobayashi Maru test. I don't know why that's necessary, but like, I just don't appreciate the overabundance of arrogance. It's too much. It just makes him unlikable.
Yes. Yeah. So then, he's basically put on trial for this thing, and
As he should be.
So what's his name? Tyler Perry.
I love Tyler Perry in this movie, by the way.
Is he like the head of the Federation?
I think I don't think he's not the president of the Federation. He's probably the president of Starfleet Academy, if I had to guess. Because the president of the Federation has got to deal with way more important matters than some kid cheating on a test that could probably be handled in a day because it's very obvious he cheated. Yeah. I would say that Tyler Perry's probably just like the chancellor of the Academy or president of the Academy, something like that. But I love him in this role. I was so happy to see him in there. I don't know why. It was just like, it's just cool.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. And again, like the casting is great, and it's just very fun to see him in this role. And he's like, Kirk, you've been accused of putting a subroutine into the system, allowing you to beat the test. In normal vernacular, you cheated.
Yeah.
And so then he's like, I want to be able to face my accuser, and it's basically Spock. And Kirk says what we've heard him say before: I don't believe in no-win scenarios, which is familiar.
Which is fine.
I get the feeling that these things for you, they don't work.
They don't work with this character.
They don't work
with this. He has no right to believe in no-win scenarios. He hasn't done anything with his life. He has done nothing but be a delinquent for the first 25 years of his life. He has no right to believe. Other than his own father, he has no experience in no-win scenarios. You know what I mean? So the arrogance and the fact that he has all of these ideals and shit like that of like, I don't believe in no-win scenarios. Like, okay, that's something for a 40-year-old to say who has been in some scrapes, who's done that. Would make more sense for Pike to say, not you, who has literally done nothing at all.
Yeah. Which is kind of funny because like you could tell that they're trying to like take all these moments from all the other films and kind of like put the words in his mouth, but they don't work sometimes because we haven't built up the relationship with the character to make those words ring true. It just comes off hollow.
Exactly. It comes off hollow. And again, this is nothing against Chris Pine. I think Chris Pine does a fine job for the character he's given. But it just doesn't sound genuine. It doesn't sound authentic. It sounds better coming from Spock. Because if Spock is at the point where he's writing no-win scenario tests for Starfleet, yeah, he's a professor. He's got some credentials. He's got some shit I can get behind. McCoy has been a doctor. He's becoming a doctor for Starfleet. He can serve on starships. He's got some credentials.
Yeah.
Kirk
so the Tyler Perry character, he's an admiral.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So he's the admiral who has to babysit these fucking idiots.
I mean, it's probably a pretty cushy position, but I'm sure this is not what he wants to be doing this Sunday.
Not at all. And then so also in this conversation, Spock again brings up his dad. He's like, well, your dad, understood what this is about. It's like there's scenarios where you have to understand what you're going to do when you're faced with certain death, and you have to embrace that fear and also be able to overcome it and control yourself and your crew and do what's right to save as many people as possible. That's the point.
Yeah, that's the point of the test. And like, I'm sure Prime Kirk got the same kind of similar dressing down in some aspect of it, but he was probably because he was a better student that they let him get away with it. it's a very Anakin Skywalker situation. I can save everyone. I can save everyone, and it doesn't matter what route I take to get there by endangering other people to save others. That's where the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few come in. You can't save everyone. It'd be great. It'd be great in a perfect world. It'd be great if that were the case. But it's not.
Yeah. So the hearing is like suddenly interrupted because there was a distress signal from Vulcan. Uh-oh. So everyone scrambles. Everyone, oh man, yeah, when we get into Vulcan, this will be fun. So Kirk gets suspended in the meantime. It's like, we'll deal with you later, but you're suspended now, so you can't fly. And then, he's kind of like moping around. Kirk's like, oh, I'm sad, even though I
did something wrong and there are consequences? What?
Wow. That's like so accurate, right? Like,
but it's actually fairly, unrealistic considering white 20-year-old men rarely get consequences anyway. So, I mean, it's very unrealistic in my opinion.
Yeah, they actually gave him a slight, like, normally it would be like, we're going to suspend your sentencing until a later date. And then they just never do anything again.
Yeah, he probably got a slap on the wrist anyway. So, well, because he did something, heroic. It wasn't just him, by the way, but, whatever.
Yeah. So Bones starts to feel bad for Kirk, so he comes up with this cute little plan to get him on board a ship. So he gives him a vaccine for something. I forget what it was. There's some kind of funny.
This scene is actually pretty funny.
Yeah,
it is actually pretty good.
So he gives him a vaccine, which causes a reaction that makes him sick. So while Bones is doing that, Uhura. So like it's kind of funny. So like the Orion girl gets sent off on some other ship, and then like, oh, Uhura, you're assigned to the Farragut, and the Orion girl's happy, and so she runs off, and Uhura's like, what the fuck? She's like not happy. She goes,
like, fuck about this assignment.
So this was so basically what she does is she's like, so you said that I'm really qualified, I'm really good at my job, and why am I on the Farragut? Like, that doesn't make any sense. That's for Kirk.
Yeah, that's for like people who didn't pass the exams.
Yeah. That's for like the C's get degrees type people. Like,
yeah, and he's just like, well, it was to make sure I wasn't showing favoritism because your butt's to bomb.
Yeah, and she's like, no, I'm assigned to the Enterprise. He's like, you're assigned to the Enterprise. And
she's like, you bet your sweet Vulcan ass I am.
Yeah. I remember there was a lot of people. Well, there was a lot of women who cheered. I remember women cheering at this scene.
Yeah, I was probably one of them, honestly, because I was just like, yeah, girl, you are on the Enterprise.
Yeah.
It's not favoritism. You are qualified to be on the Enterprise. I get why Spock was just like, yeah, I didn't want to show fit. That's actually a very appropriate, like, if he is her professor, that is an appropriate response, basically. That, like, it'll be very obvious, like, that I'm choosing you to be on the flagship of
the flagship that I'm on.
Exactly. So, like, I get where he's coming from, but I'm glad she put her foot down. She's like, no, actually.
No. I do not belong on a Farragut.
He told me last night I belonged on the Enterprise, baby. So.
And so while that's happening, so Kirk is like all messed up from all these vaccines, and so Bones is going to bring him aboard the shuttle to go onto the Enterprise. And the guy's like, oh, well, he's grounded. He's like, well, because I'm a physician, I have to take care of this guy, and I cannot abandon him. So I'm taking him aboard the ship. Period. End story. And the guy's like, as you were. It's like, as you were, sir.
As you were.
Yeah. And so then we get this first. So we get the amazing music, enterprising young men as they're in the shuttle. He's like, Kirk, look, and we see the Enterprise for the first time.
She looks good. She looks good.
Yes, and this is its maiden voyage, which is also kind of interesting.
Yeah, because she had been in space a lot longer than that. But again, it's a different timeline. I won't harp on it. Captain April, but I'm not. Okay, that's it. I'm done.
So then we get a whole bunch of scenes where we see all the stuff that's going on in the Enterprise. It's really cool. We see Spock kind of walking around. He gets in the what's the name of the turbo lift, right?
Yep. Turbo lift.
He gets in the turbo lift. He goes onto the bridge. We see Captain Pike. He says some stuff. We see I think
Chekhov, Pavel Andreevich.
and again, another great casting. Anton Yelchin.
Oh, he was so good.
Who's amazing and who is no longer with us in a very tragic
it was so horrible
accident where his car parking brake failed and it rolled down a hill and crushed him and killed him.
Oh my god, it was so fucking tragic.
Terrible.
But what an amazing body of work he left behind in such a short period of time. Truly amazing.
And they made a documentary about him too.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'd have to watch that. I was torn apart when I heard about that. Because he was my age when he died.
Yes.
I was 25 as well.
Our age. We were all born in the same year. So he's our age.
And it's just
he's gone. He's gone.
Yeah. The guy I was dating at the time really just wouldn't let that go. It was so bad. But he sent me like this drawing that someone had made of like DeForest Kelley and Scotty and Spock, and it's just like, oh, we weren't expecting you. And I was just like, why would you send that to me? What the hell? Yeah, it was so messed up.
Yeah. Oh well.
It goes with the territory, but yeah, it was very sad. I'm very sad that actor is no longer with us.
Yeah. So yeah, and we see the rest. We see Sulu. So we get this weird thing. So like Sulu forgets to like they're about to take off, go into warp, and Sulu like forgets to take off the parking brake. Sulu
would never forget the parking brake. I'm just saying that right fucking now. Hikaru Sulu would not forget the parking brake.
And they're like, "Where's Helmsman McKenna?" Oh, he has lungworm, sir. I'm Hikaru.
What the fuck is that? Like, ew.
Let me say he had lungworm.
That sounds horrible. Is he okay?
He has lungworm.
Is he okay? Like, I think we should be a little concerned right now.
And who's the actor who's playing Sulu?
I think John Cho.
John Cho, yeah.
John Cho.
Again, he's great.
He's great. He was great. I love when he spins around, the lens flares right behind him, and he's like, Hikaru Sulu, and I'm like, yeah, you are.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I love Sulu. He's I think I'm probably gushed about how much I've loved Sulu, but he's great.
Yeah, Sulu's great. And again, like the casting is so wonderful. So wonderful. Like we're like, yeah, I'd love to like see these guys in movies for the next decade.
Yeah.
And again, things always they always start off well with these projects. JJ gets involved. They always start off well.
The path to hell is paved with good intentions.
They're paved with such good intentions, and they're paved really well, and they're clean, and you're driving on the surface, and the first time you drive on it, it's great. You keep driving on it, and then it starts getting bumpy, and you're like, wait, what the fuck? Like this was really clean. Like the last time and then you get to somewhere and you're going to the road to hell.
Yeah, it's like it starts off really smooth. Do you know what a frost heave is?
No, never heard of it.
Okay, so here in the great, territories of New England, we have a thing called frost heaves. And basically what happens during the winter, the ground gets so cold because it is the granite state. The cement, the pavement gets so cold that it rises. And sometimes it cracks. And that's what this is like.
It's a ground heave.
It's literally just a frost heave, and you can't escape it, and you have to wait for the thaw. And the thaw comes far too late, unfortunately.
Yeah. Wow. that was educational. I like that. So anyway, after all this stuff happens, they go into warp after the whole fleet is already gone. And we get the whole conversation about lungworm or whatever. But they are really, again, like I just love the way that you do the VFX. Like when they warp, like you can see the front of the ship, like kind of basically going.
Yeah, it's kind of getting distorted a little bit, and the port nacelle is kind of widen a little bit, and then it's like pew. That's great, and I just
Great.
love Pike. He's just like punch it, and I'm like, yeah.
Yeah,
What's funny is, I'm sorry, but Anson Mount's Pike has a very similar line, which I love.
cool. Yeah. Yeah, it's cool to see some love for Pike. I mean,
Finally.
Pike is the in this. Well, I mean, it was the same in the other one. I guess I don't know. Do we is he the captain in the Prime timeline and the maiden voyage of the Enterprise?
He is not, actually. No, that was Captain April, I believe. No, actually. I mean, if you want to get super technical, Captain Archer is the first captain of the Enterprise. If you want to get super, super technical, if we're talking about model of ship, Constitution class versus, whatever else, Constitution class is basically the big ones, basically, which eventually gets taken over by, I believe, Galactic? I'm pretty sure, which is what the Enterprise in Next Gen is.
Okay.
But technically, of this model of Enterprise, Captain April, I believe, was the original captain, which Pike, I believe, served under briefly. So after April, it would have been Pike. But in this timeline, because this Enterprise's maiden voyage, it is Captain Pike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, that's cool. I mean, Pike gets a lot of love in this movie.
He does, as he deserved. The character just sat on the shelf for too long. And there was always that potential for something. I highly recommend watching The Cage, because there's some dark stuff that they do with Pike. It's really good.
Yeah. So then we see Chekhov. He does this ship-wide broadcast of what their mission is, and we get some jokes like the computer doesn't understand him speaking because of his Russian accent. Like Victor 2. Like
Victor 2.
And yeah, so then he's like, oh, I'm not gonna do the accent. So
okay.
I'm not gonna do the accent. So he basically announces, okay, so we have to investigate this seismic disturbance on Vulcan, aid the evacuation of the planet if necessary, and then he says something about like, oh, they experienced a lightning storm, and when Kirk hears lightning storm, he's like, oh my god. It's almost like he saw an Orion girl or something in his dreams, and he just had to get up.
Well, I mean, it is a unique phenomenon, so I feel like it is appropriate. The reaction is appropriate. Plus, he's got a whole bunch of shit going on with his body at the time too, so his adrenaline is probably already super high. And his hands get all chunky.
His hands get massive sausage fingers.
He gets numb tongue.
Numb tongue?
And what time am I? I love that. And I love that McCoy just keeps zapping him with different vaccines to counteract the previous vaccine. Yeah. And he's just like, it's a miracle he didn't kill him. That part is pretty funny.
Yeah, it's really funny. So he's running around. Basically, he's got a theory of what's going on, and so he had to find Uhura to confirm it. And she's like what? Like what?
Oh yeah, because that's what. You don't notice the dialogue because they're both in their underwear, unfortunately. Yeah. But basically, when Uhura came back off of her shift, she had encountered this Klingon distress call, and she was not deciphering it, translating it, basically. Yeah. And she's like, "Yeah, it was super weird," but you don't notice that because.
Yeah, and that's when basically what we surmise was the Narada killing. It was 37. They destroyed 37 ships.
Yeah, I mean it's a big fucking ship, so.
Yeah. It is, yeah, and Klingon are, I don't care when, Klingon are not to be messed with, and so if they can kill that many Klingon, yeah.
And the thing is, the Klingons, you only generally see the bird of prey, which can be a little bit more smaller and it's more maneuverable and stuff like that. It's essentially they're all stealth ships essentially, but they do have a fairly formidable armada. It's unclear if it's as formidable in this timeline though. So it could be very different in this timeline.
Yeah, that's true. We see some Klingons in Into Darkness.
I can't wait to talk about that.
And we see this guy John Harrison beat the shit out of him, but that's about all we experience of them. in this timeline so far. So yeah, so then let's see. So Uhura and Kirk kind of have talk it out. Kirk rushes the bridge, and he's like, he basically tells Pike, "Hey, look, like, remember like that thing that happened to my dad, and you wrote a dissertation on it. I read it because, I'm into that stuff. The same thing that happened when I was born happened, is happening now.
Yeah.
And it happened before. Like, I know Uhura was deciphering this Klingon distress signal, where 37 ships got attacked and they got destroyed. They were in one massive ship. And that's what we're about to run into now. We're about to run into a surprise attack. And Spock basically like, oh, it's just like, we should trust Uhura. Like, that's kind of funny. That's basically what he says. Like, we should trust Uhura. Like, if she says that this is correct, it's correct. It has nothing to do with crazy Kirk. And so then they, red alert, they get ready, and when they come out of warp, everyone's dead. Everyone's destroyed. Everything's destroyed. There's nothing left. The whole fleet that went over there, they all got obliterated. And now they're in this debris field, and then Pike's like, Spock, like, sorry, Sulu, like, you have to like evasive maneuver, and he's like maneuvering immediately.
Yeah. That was pretty good. It was nice to see that, like, seeing, some of Sulu's badass piloting skills in action.
Yeah, no, his skills were quite on display, and he evades them out of this thing, and but then they engage in this fight with the Narada, and so they get fired on, and a bunch of stuff starts happening, and basically they're losing. They're no match. Like,
and they also the Narada had the element of surprise too.
Yes, they did.
Because no one was expecting that when they came out of warp, so he was able to have the element of surprise and just like sneak attack them, basically.
Yeah. So did Sulu forgetting the parking brake, did that actually like save their lives?
I guess so, yeah.
Maybe slightly.
He still wouldn't have forgotten the parking brake, that's all I'm saying.
Exactly. So then Nero, like, he sees the he sees that it's the Enterprise, basically. He sees the NCC 1701. It's like, oh my god, magnify! Look at magnify the whole. And he's like, I know that ship or whatever. And then he hails Captain Pike, and then he's like, hello, Christopher, I'm Nero. He's like, Pike's like, okay, so you have declared war on the Federation. I will arrange a conference with the Romulan leadership if you agree to withdraw. And he's like, I don't speak for the Empire. We stand apart. And
that's when they're kind of like, oh shit, we got clandestine, rogue Romulans. This is just
we got a
what
lone
we need
wolf.
right now.
We got a lone wolf on our hands.
Mm-hmm.
So then we get the thing that you never want to hear when you're outgunned by someone else is, why don't you board a shuttlecraft and come aboard my ship so we can negotiate?
Especially since we've already seen how Nero negotiates, and it's not great.
Not great at all.
Come here. Oh my god, Ellie. I'm sorry.
That's all good.
She's like just becoming dead weight. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. There she goes. Yeah, now, especially since we already know how Nero, negotiates with Starfleet captains, which is usually
you kill them.
them.
Mm-hmm. Dismemberment, skewering, torture. And then not good, impaling, stuff like that. So Pike basically agrees, but like both Kirk and Spock don't want him to do it.
It's like, this is obviously a trap, you dumbass. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. So like, if Kirk and Spock and this iteration of them agree, it's probably a bad idea.
Yeah, it's probably not the best idea.
So meanwhile, Nero tells them prepare the red matter.
What's that?
So we have to have a MacGuffin, right?
Of
there must
course.
be a MacGuffin.
There has to be.
So the red matter is the MacGuffin of this movie. And we have no idea. We have no idea what it is at first. It's like, what's the red matter? So, and so then Pike's like, I need someone with advanced combat training. And guess who volunteers?
Oh.
Helmsman Sulu. He's like, oh yeah, I have training. Okay.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. So Kirk, Sulu, and this dude Olsen, who's
The red shirt.
Yeah, he's a red shirt, but apparently I was reading something, and he's like a senior. He's like a senior. Yeah, he's like a chief engineer.
I guess the list was short when it came to people volunteering with combat experience. Plus, I think he probably he just was a red shirt. He was just there.
Yeah, he was a red shirt. So basically, Pike tells them, okay, so you're gonna have to like do this thing, disable this drill, because this drill is it's disabling the Enterprise's transport capability, so they can't like warp people and stuff. And so that's a problem. So that's your mission: disable this so that we can warp people in and out. And then Pike leaves Spock in command, so he's now the captain. And we also see that Bones gets promoted too, because his superior got killed.
Yeah, the chief medical officer must have gotten blown up.
Yeah, he got blown up.
He gets a nasty way of a promotion.
Yeah.
Everyone's getting promoted.
Yeah.
Which also, I have to say about this scene, where is the Vulcan defense systems?
Right?
Apparently, one of the most advanced alien species has a shit planetary defense system, apparently. Now, I guess one could probably argue that the drill or the Romulan ship is interfering with, but they know they're being drilled into.
Yeah.
I just find it very difficult to believe that Vulcans wouldn't fight back. It's one of my biggest issues with the whole Vulcan.
Yeah,
thing.
that's a great point. Because they don't do anything.
Yeah, because Vulcans aren't pacifists. Like if you poke them, they will poke you back. If you shoot at them, they will shoot at you back. If you drill into their planet, I think they were gonna defend themselves, but they're just hiding in a cave. I don't know.
And the other thing too is like the Narada is equipped with, the shit with the red matter. Like it's also honestly, it's kind of stupid that they even need to drill at all.
Yeah, right? It doesn't make any.
Like,
why don't you put the red matter in a torpedo?
Yeah, you just have to like send it off, and that's it.
You could beam it to the planet with a detonation device.
Yeah,
you don't need to drill. It's like, I know you guys are miners and you take your job very seriously, but you're literally just wasting time.
Yeah,
you're giving the heroes time. That's why they're doing it, because they're giving the heroes time to try and disable it. And
we also get some cool scenes.
We do get some cool scenes out of it, but when you start peeling it back, it's just like it doesn't
not necessary.
Not making any sense.
Yeah, it's not necessary.
If you can peel it back that easily, there's something wrong.
Mm-hmm. So Kirk, Sulu, and Olsen, they're gonna have to do a orbital skydive to land on this drill platform. Now this scene is fucking awesome.
Like, yeah, it's a pretty good scene.
Is great when they do this orbital skydive, because like when they're in space, it's like silent. And they're just descending and descending and descending.
And you can hear their breathing and stuff like that. It's pretty cool.
Oh, it's great. It's great. And then, as they start to approach Vulcan, the atmosphere starts to pick up and you can hear the sound of them, basically flying through the air. So they're descending and they're like, they're being watched by the Enterprises, and, Chekhov's like, oh, there's 20,000 meters. And they're descending and descending, and so Sulu and Kirk basically pull their chute around like 5,000 meters, and this guy Olsen, who's a total redshirt idiot, decides he's gonna do it basically while his head is like right in front of the
as close as he possibly can, because I don't know if he's trying to show off on this really, important mission or some shit like that. But yeah, he's an idiot. Plus, that probably if you landed that hard, you're gonna break something.
Oh, you're dead. You're dead.
It's like
Yeah, he doesn't do it soon enough, and so he basically trips, falls, and gets sucked into the plasma.
Loser.
Yeah, and he's like, I really like this line from Chekhov. He's like so surprised. Like, Olsen is gone, sir.
Yeah, there's nothing left of Olsen.
He's like so genuinely just like, whoa, he got sucked into the fire.
Yeah, he dead.
Oh my god! I think there's a scene too, like I don't know why I want to bring this up, but there's something that happens in Into Darkness, and then Kirk tells Chekhov, "Oh, I need you in engineering. Put on a red shirt."
Oh yeah, the whole theater gasped.
Like, ah!
There was literally an audible gasp because I was like, "Oh no, oh no, that's not good."
Exactly. So Kirk and Sulu, so they land on the platform and they engage with the Romulans, and so they're fighting. Kirk takes off his helmet. He's bashing a dude with his helmet. Yeah, that's basically what he did to some dude's head. So then Sulu has a little bit of a harder time with it. So like he almost falls into the plasma jet. But he like kicks his way out. It's like really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets on the platform, and the chute is like contracting, and it's gonna pull him into a fire. And so he like pulls out a sword, to cut the chute, and he's like fighting dudes with a sword now. It's like, it's really cool. Like this scene is like the type of adventure, swashbuckling fun that you never knew you wanted in your Star Trek movie.
Well, this is not the first time we've seen Sulu with a sword. I'm sure you've seen the memes of Sulu running around without a shirt on with a sword. Yeah, he knows his way around a sword.
Yeah, and so we get it in this film, and it's fun. I mean, it's really cool. It's really cool to see them.
Yeah,
in the scene together, fighting people. And Sulu basically saves Kirk's life. Like Sulu takes out one dude, he kicks him into one of these vents that shoots out some fire. That dude gets burned alive. Kirk almost falls off the edge, and the dude's like trying to step on his hand, but then Sulu stabs him in the back, and he falls off. And then they're like, I think it was like, oh, Olsen had the detonators and now he's dead. He's like, what are we gonna do? Let's just shoot it. So they get some guns and they shoot at the.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, so it works. But then, so they're on the platform and they see that they launch the red matter into the planet's core. So they see this thing like firing down. And then they basically see the explosion or whatever happens. And, then Chekhov's like, oh, dude, the red matter created a singularity at the center of Vulcan. It's created a black hole. And it's going to consume the whole planet. And Spock's like, well, how long? It's like minutes.
Minutes.
Yeah, it's going to destroy the entire planet. So then Sulu and Kirk run into some problems. Like the drill gets detached, and so because of that, Sulu falls, and so Kirk has to like jump and save him. And because they're moving, it's hard to beam them back to the ship.
Yeah.
Basically, we get the scene where like it's like, oh, are they gonna die? They're not gonna die.
They're not gonna. They're gonna be fine. But it's suspenseful.
Yeah, it's suspenseful. And it gets close to them dying. But Chekhov, it's a cool scene for Chekhov. This is another thing he can do. He is able to beam them while they're moving.
Yeah.
He beams them back and saves their lives, which is cool. And he's like, I think he says something. He says something kind of.
And he says something in Russian, I think.
Yeah, he does. Yashua.
It's on the tip of my tongue. What does he say? I can't remember, and I'd probably butcher it if I did.
Yeah. But anyway, Chekhov saves him, and then Spock's like, I have to go down there and see. There's some people hiding somewhere. I forget what they call that place. It's like the Ark of something.
It's a temple or something like that. It's like a holy place for meditation, most likely. Maybe a temple of Sarok. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, a whole bunch of elders or important Vulcans are hiding there instead of getting on a fucking transport ship because
yeah.
There's no reason why they should be hiding in there. It's like,
I know.
Vulcans don't pray. They meditate.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. Anyway. Oh yeah, Mount. I think you're right. It was that mountain. Cataric Arc, something like that. Anyway, it's some Vulcan-y stuff,
Yeah.
Very, very heady, very crazy terms, but yeah, they're off praying somewhere. So then, so Spock is going to evacuate these people. They're in this cave, and then like things are like collapsing on people and they're dying. It's really kind of ridiculous. And so then they all get out and they're being beamed off, and something basically like the ground under them collapses and his mom falls, and so they can't beam her out in time, and she dies. So Spock basically watches his mom die.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's really bad. And then we see the Enterprise fly away, and the whole planet is consumed by this black hole and totally destroyed. And then we get a voiceover where Spock is like, "There's only 10,000 Vulcan left," and he's like, "I am now a member of an endangered species." So,
yeah, it's pretty heavy, man.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts about them deciding to destroy Vulcan?
I thought it was so bad. It's very emotional. It's very intense, and it's very dramatic. There's a lot of drama that goes into it. I don't think they should have destroyed Vulcan, though. And if they were there were so many faster ways to do that. There's so many faster ways to get the red matter onto the planet. I thought it was very stupid that there was no planetary defense systems. I thought it was stupid that people were hiding in caves. It doesn't make any sense for Vulcans to be hiding in caves. The logical thing would be get off the planet. And it just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me at all. And it's not that it's not emotional or heartbreaking, and you have to emotionally compromise Spock eventually. And I guess the best way to do that is to destroy his entire planet. But within the same vein, his mom dying doesn't really bother me all that much. I mean, it's sad. I think you could have emotionally compromised him without destroying his entire planet. You could have just killed his mom. Like, what if Nero grabbed her or something? What if he beamed her on his ship and he made him watch him kill her or something like that? I don't know, just something different. But yeah, those are pretty much my thoughts on it.
Yeah. It's a strong choice.
It's a very strong choice, and I think it's only something someone who wants to make a movie with a Death Star in it would do.
Wow, the
comparisons are very strong.
I never thought about that until you brought that up. I think
it's very sus, as the kids say.
Thought about that. That's really funny. Yeah, it's like, well, they have a planet destroying weapon, and that's literally what he does. He's like, we're gonna see in one of the next scenes, basically, Nero's plan is to destroy every Federation planet. That is his plan, and basically what he says is that. Pretty much his motivation is like the Federation betrayed me, Spock betrayed me, they got my planet destroyed, they cannot be trusted, and so I can't he says, my purpose is not simply to avoid the destruction of the home that I love, but to create a Romulus that exists free of the Federation. That's why I will destroy all remaining Federation planets, starting with Earth. So basically he's like, And I think this is like a common thing that comes up with this character, Nero. It's like, why didn't you just change, just make things better? Why don't you
go to Romulus and warn them that in X amount of years, this supernova is going to happen. So maybe we should have a mass exodus of this planet now and find a new home.
Well, I will say one thing. So just imagine this. So I'm going to send you back to September 10th, 2001. Would you actually be like, we wouldn't be able to change anything? Oh, they're gonna fly a plane into this building. You have to get everybody out now.
Yeah.
No one will listen.
But he's got proof. He's got the archives. If he can spend 25 years learning about Captain Kirk and Spock and how Spock thinks and how he can predict how he will behave, give him proof. Here's the proof. It's gonna go supernova. Our planet will be destroyed. Listen to me. Maybe it would have even brought Romulus together for once instead of them constantly having all this infighting. Maybe the threat of this is where it would have been like a classic Star Trek conundrum. But JJ Abrams doesn't care about the classic Star Trek conundrums. He only cares about quite frankly conflict. That's all he cares about.
So one thing I will say, I don't think that what he wants to do is contradictory of him trying to save Romulus, honestly. Okay. Because he can still, but like what he's doing is changing the future in ways that he think is going to be best for his planet. And so for him, the problem is that basically the way I see it, like what he would do is he would destroy everything, and then he would change the future so that Romulus was not destroyed. That was basically his plan, the way I see it. He doesn't really like it would be nice if they maybe had him say at some point, yeah, I'm gonna save Romulus, but I'm also gonna destroy you guys because you guys are the problem. You guys are the reason why my planet got destroyed. So to me, that kind of thinking of it that way makes sense because, like, to him, he sees the Federation as the cause, and so he wants to get rid of the root cause, which is the Federation. In his,
and I can definitely see that. But the thing is, the supernovas. That's the issue. The supernova is what causes the destruction. And I get why he'd be angry at the Federation and stuff like that. Every villain has to have some kind of agenda when it comes to the Federation. But the supernova is the fixed point in time. That is what is going to happen regardless. And it's, again, you want to have the movie, you want to have the conflict with all this other stuff, but it's a bad plan.
Yeah.
Because eventually you're still outnumbered by the Federation. Now that they know what happened to Vulcan, they're going to be prepared. And what's stopping them from just blowing you out of the freaking sky? I mean, unless every planetary defense system is, just not working that day.
Yeah. Although he does like, basically he's asking Pike for, was it the sub frequency? I don't know. Subspace.
Some kind of frequency. Yeah, that might be what he's actually, what is his end goal is.
Yeah, he wants to get the so he can destroy Earth, basically. Like, that's the next thing he wants. And so Pike is like, I'm not going to tell you anything, dude. You're crazy. And he's like, well, I'm going to use these Centurion slugs to get the information. It's like they attach to your spinal.
Yeah, it's the same things from Wrath of Khan.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, those are the same things.
Yeah.
Just another Easter egg.
Yeah, that's really cool. So yeah, that's we leave Pike getting tortured. They open his mouth up and they're throwing these slugs in there. Pretty gross. So then on the Enterprise, so Spock's basically like comes up with a theory of like what happened. He's like, okay, so the only way that this could have worked is if they created a tunnel through space and time with the technology that they have that's creating these black hole singularities. So that means that they're from the future, and that this has created an alternate reality, and that also the events of which cannot be anticipated by either party. That's basically kind of like spelling out exactly what this movie that we're seeing is. It is an alternate timeline from the prime timeline that is totally different. And not totally different, but like it can be different in big and small ways.
Yeah, just like Spock says, we can't actually predict the outcome of any of this. Yeah. So
because it's all changed because of like a butterfly effect, basically. So Spock then is like, okay, so what we need to do, and since he's got these, like, we need to join with Starfleet again so we can balance the terms of the next engagement. Kirk doesn't like that. Kirk thinks that's stupid. Kirk's like, we should like fly our ship by ourselves. And engage with the Narada, which has destroyed every other ship that we've ever seen.
Destroyed an entire fleet and planet at this point, including a fleet of Klingons. Need I say more about what a
you know,
dumbass he
you know what's crazy too? Like, here's the thing that's really like kind of insane is that like whenever you create like a universe of a story, like the story kind of you're creating thematic purpose and premise with every choice that you make.
Mm-hmm.
So by the end of this movie, Kirk is actually right.
Sure.
So like it's kind of insane. Like he's like, yeah, we should do that, and that ends up being the right thing to do in this movie universe.
By luck.
Yeah.
By pure luck that he didn't get stabbed to death by Nero.
Yeah.
And get all of his comrades killed.
Oh yeah, this is totally. Well, we'll see later, but I think Chekhov and Spock really, they do a lot of the hard work, and Sulu. So anyway, so Kirk's like, no, we should blah 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 blah, and then and Spock's like, dude, get the fuck out of here. I don't know what you're doing here, man, but you shouldn't have been here.
You're not really a member of the crew, so I don't have to listen to you.
Yeah, and I'm the captain, and you're just a dude. Like, I don't know what you're doing here. So they get into a fight. Spock does the Vulcan nerve pinch on him, and he's like, get him off my ship.
Literally, just get him off the goddamn ship.
And he gets
not in the brig, not in a room. Jettison his ass.
Yeah. Jettison him, get him out now. This man is a menace. So he's sent to, was it Delta Vega? Something like that? Is that the planet, I think?
Something like he's sent to Planet Hoth.
Yeah. Man, I'm just sensing more and more that there's all these things that just feel oddly familiar, right?
All these space creatures that never, probably existed, but just all of a sudden show up that look very similar to other creatures I've seen before.
Yeah, so Kirk's on this planet. It's a snow planet, like you said. It's Hoth, basically. There's an outpost on this planet, and he's trying to get there. So he gets attacked by this like polar bear looking thing.
I don't know what the fuck that thing was.
This thing has the name of that thing. Dracolius?
I have no idea.
Dracolius?
It's never been in Star Trek before.
Yeah. Then that
I'm aware of.
That thing gets eaten by like a Hellion. Like this massive.
Yeah, because there's always a bigger fish.
Yeah. Well, that was Phantom Menace. So Kirk's running from this thing, this giant red Hellion looking thing. And look, I mean, I think that the things look cool.
Oh yeah, they look fine. They've aged very well.
Yeah, that thing looked really cool. And like you said, it has aged well. It looks really, really cool. I like especially the way it moves and when it's slipping on the ice. It's like it's very well done. It's very well done. So Kirk runs into this little cave, and then some dude comes out with a torch and is like fending the thing off. And it's Spock. It's Spock Prime. It's Leonard Nimoy, and it's really exciting. And so then on top of that, he's like, "Oh, hey, Kirk." He's like excited to see him, and it's like it's very cool. And then he says, "Oh, I have and I will always be your friend." And that's kind of a special moment.
Yeah, it's a special moment because it's one of the most important lines of dialogue that you could get from Spock.
Yeah, but then it's funny too because like then the Kelvin Kirk's like, what?
Yeah, he's like, I'm Spock, and he's like, bullshit.
Yeah,
it's like nah.
Yeah.
Nah.
And then he tells them a bunch of stuff about their past and their history and stuff. And he's like, I'm not. And Kirk's like, I'm not the captain of the ship. You are. You were marooned me here. Because I'm a dumbass. Well, he doesn't.
Yeah. He doesn't say that, but I think it's interesting. I like the way that Leonard Nimoy processes it because he's like, yeah, that's probably something I would do.
Yeah, exactly. And so then Spock's like, okay, let me mind meld with you and I'll explain what's happened. And we get this really cool scene that basically explains all of what happened. Have we ever seen a mind meld depicted like this?
Probably not. I think not with like images to it. From what I understand, usually whoever's giving the mind meld is explaining the feeling behind what is happening. We saw Sarek do it with Kirk in Search for Spock, where he's like, "Let me mind meld with you to figure out where the hell my son's Katra, where you left his Katra, you irresponsible dumbass." But that's not Kirk's fault. He didn't know. And that's when he like goes in and he's like, it's usually really dark and in shadows and stuff like that. Sarek did a mind meld with Picard, which was super intense. Very good episode. But yeah, I don't think we've ever seen it depicted really with imagery. And now every mind meld is depicted exactly like this.
Oh, really?
Oh my God, every one of them.
Okay. I mean, I think it's really well done. I think it's one of the better things that this film has done.
Yeah, that was cool.
It's very dreamlike. It's very kind of stream of conscious, and I just think it's really cool. It's not even, and it's also like the thing is like I just don't even think about it. It's like, oh well, yeah, that's really, it just makes sense. It groks, you know what I'm saying? It just makes sense as a way of depicting. If I could see your thoughts and feel your feelings, what it could be.
And it's always very intense for the person receiving the mind meld too, so I think Kirk's reaction coming out of it is like, holy shit. Because you're not just the person giving it you're also feeling what they're feeling as well. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting. It's just now it's been overdone.
Yeah, it's been,
So it's cool the first time around, but then after a while it's just like, oh, here we go, montages, weird images that we don't understand, and woo.
Cool sound design though. The sound design.
Oh yeah, great sound design. Very echoey, very dreamlike, like you said. Yeah, but like I said, now it's just like you know what to expect. There's no surprise anymore with a mind meld.
So basically, Spock explains. So there was a supernova. There was a sun that was going to go supernova, and it was threatening like the galaxy. So the Vulcan, Science Academy, they came up with this idea of how to basically take care of the problem. They created the red matter, which can form a black hole singularity to then absorb the supernova. Spock was en route to basically use the red matter to stop this from happening, and then it exploded. The star just exploded, and so they weren't prepared for that, and it destroyed Romulus. So he then launched the red matter to prevent further damage. That worked, but then he got pursued by Nero and his crew, and they were pissed off. As we know, he's pissed at Spock. So then both of them get sucked into this black hole, and when they get sucked into this black hole, they traveled into the past. So the Narada got through the black hole first, and so that's why we saw them 25 years earlier go and destroy the Kelvin. Now Spock entered moments later, but in our time, in the Kelvin time, it was 25 years. And so Nero had been waiting for him to arrive. He arrives, he gets captured by Nero, maroons him on Delta Vega, and from Delta Vega, he's able to watch Vulcan be destroyed. And so that was basically him exacting his revenge. So Kirk is like, whoa, this is a lot, dude. And also on top of that, he's like, whoa, like, you actually feel emotion? He's like, yeah, I do.
Yeah, duh.
I feel a lot of emotion. I can tell you I'm very emotional right now. So then, the two of them, Kirk and Spock Prime, look for the outpost. They find it, and hey, guess who's there? Montgomery Scott and some cute little alien dude. What's the alien dude's name? I don't even know.
I don't know. I'm sure he has a name, but
let me see. Keenzer. I think that's his name. Yeah. Keenzer is the alien's name. He's cool. He's a good, because he's in all of these movies, so he's excellent. So Scotty's like, oh, why, you guys left me here for like 6 months. I've been sent here because, I accidentally tried this experiment where I tried to send my professor's dog using transwarp beaming, but then the dog died, and then he got mad. Like, why did he get mad?
So it wasn't his professor; it was Admiral Archer.
It was an admiral.
Admiral Archer, who is of course Captain Archer from the series Enterprise. Don't know how that piece of shit became a admiral personally. But yeah, he loves his dog Porthos. He's a little beagle that hangs out with him on the ship. Very cute puppy. I don't know if this is the same Porthos. That'd be a really old dog. But yeah, Scotty tried his. I don't know why Scotty tried his experiment on the dog. I think that was probably stupid on his part. I would start with an apple personally first, some kind of fruit. Maybe it had to be a living thing. I'm not entirely sure why. But yeah, he lost his dog. And then if you're an admiral who loses their pet, you're gonna banish people.
Yeah. So he got banished. So yeah, then they're talking and like, you know, basically Spock says, "Oh yeah, Scotty, you've done all these things. Like, I'm from the future." It's like, well, really? Like, blah blah blah. Like, it's not really possible. Like, if I've done all these things, why am I here? Why am I stuck in this place? And then basically like, Spock's like, "Okay, we don't have time for this. I need both of you to get back on the Enterprise because, like, you know, these things, there's things that need to be done by you two." And then, and by the way, he's like, "Oh yeah, here's your equation for transwarp beaming." And he's like, "Oh shit." And so then before they leave, Spock tells Kirk, like, you know, "My younger self is definitely emotionally compromised. And if you can elicit an emotional response, then I forget what it is, but there's some, he's like, oh, this, you know, whatever part of the book of Starfleet, if you're emotionally compromised, you can't be the captain. And so, you know, if you can get a rise out of me,
if you can get an outburst out of me, if you can get me to almost kill you, then I think we're golden."
Yeah. And so, and he says live long and prosper to them before they get sent off, right?
I'm sure.
Yeah. Which is, again, really nice. I mean, it's very cool, like, what they have Leonard Nimoy doing in this movie, I'd say.
Yeah, I loved Leonard Nimoy.
Like, it's really, really nice. It's very excellent. And again, this is another one of these, like we talked at the beginning about the requel movie, the reboot sequel, right? You want to have guys like him in this movie because it gives this air of legitimacy.
Yeah.
The connection that we have a connection to him as Spock. But, you know, we want our cake and we want to eat it too. We want a young guy to play Spock who's going to be around for, you know, 20 more years. But we also want to have that emotional connection to the person that we've had for 40 previous years. So how can we do that? Well, we have a new timeline.
Time travel.
We time travel, exactly.
It's not even just time travel. It's a whole new timeline entirely.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
Spock gets to begin, which is also just kind of sad too when you think about it. Because like, what was Spock? I'm sure Spock had a life, you know, in the 20s.
Oh yeah,
in his timeline. So it's just like,
it's so
sad. He handles it very well, but like, he was an ambassador for fuck's sake. He was doing shit. He was getting shit done. Then you just have to go back in time. Like that's like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah, I've always been kind of curious, like if there's any movie that's done like jumping between timelines, not just time travel. I don't know. So food for thought. So anyway, so Scotty gets warped into this water tank, and so we get this whole thing where Kirk has to save him. Kirk saves him, and then, like, you know, they get taken up to the bridge. So he starts to goad. Kirk starts to goad Spock, and he, like, you know, saying all this stuff about him, like, well, you don't even care, like all those people died, and you have no response. You're like a robot, blah 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 blah. You know, the typical. The typical stuff. Which is
not, again, this is not the first time Kirk has said some really hurtful things just to get an emotional response out of Spock. Spock has almost killed him for this many times.
Yeah. And so then Kirk, you know, he finds the way to really jab him. And he starts talking about his mom. He says, like, you never loved her. And Spock, like, he's had enough.
It's like, when are people just gonna understand not to talk about my mom?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I don't get it.
Third time. This is the third time. Third time's a charm, and he beats the shit out of Kirk.
Good.
It's kind of satisfying. Kind of satisfying.
It is
right?
satisfying. I'm not gonna lie.
I really like he does this like overhand like karate chop on him. And it's like really excellent to see him just chop the shit out of him. It's like bam, bam. It's like, and then he's choking him
with one hand.
with one hand, yeah. And he's basically gonna kill him until his dad says something.
And he's just like, Spock, dude, no. Like, I've had this conversation with you for many years.
Well, you know, I think this is the moment where the dad kind of like, I think again another casting. I think the dad's great.
Yeah, he was a pretty good Sarek.
I really like him as Sarek. I think he's excellent. Because I think this really kind of hit the dad where he's like, oh shit, like, I think he was almost like, I fucked up, like when I
maybe I haven't been a good father. Yeah.
Conversation earlier, like I didn't handle that well because he shouldn't be acting like this. And it's my fault.
Yeah, because one thing that these movies actually do well is that it gives Spock a relationship with his father he doesn't have in the Prime timeline. Their relationship in the Prime timeline is very estranged. He's not even there when Sarek eventually passes away. They never made peace. There is no closure. It's left for both of them to just kind of deal with in their own stubborn way. Their stubbornness is their undoing. So this movie actually does give you a happier ending for Spock and Sarek's relationship.
Yeah. I really think it's pretty well done because, like, again, like they then have this conversation and the dad kind of admits like he's emotional too. He's like, I married your mother because I love her, and you know, yeah, he's like kind of less terse in this conversation than as opposed to like the one when Spock was a kid. So it's nice to kind of see that, you know, that balancing.
Just him finally admitting, you know, like, I am actually pretty emotional. You know, I repress it because that's my way of life. But, you know, I do have feeling like I'm pretty shook by this. My whole planet just got blown up. My wife is dead. Like, I'm hurting too, bro.
Yeah. And it's okay to feel hurt. It doesn't make you not a Vulcan. Like, you're a person of both worlds, and that's fine. And, you know, your mother would want you to, like, just
be happy.
Yeah, just let it go. Just let it out and kill these freaking Romulans, basically. Okay, so then on the bridge, so, you know, Kirk now is in charge, and we get this cool stuff, some cool camera angles and stuff, like when he sits in the chair. It's a really cool angle where it's like very Dutch and weird. And then Uhura's like, I hope you know what you're doing.
Because I have no confidence in you whatsoever.
That's really funny, yeah. I hope you know what you're doing. He's like, I do too. This should be fun.
Oh, that makes me feel really good about everything.
Yeah. So Chekhov has this plan. He's like, okay, so like if we like do this thing, we can warp behind Titan, and we'll go through Saturn's like atmosphere or something, and then they basically won't be able to see us, which is convenient, very convenient. But it gets us a really cool shot when they do it.
It does.
So I forgive them totally. And also, like, we get to see this cool thing with Sulu, like, being Sulu, right? So, like, it's like, well, we can only do it because Chekhov's really smart and Sulu's really good.
Yeah.
So,
which is true. They're both very good at what they do.
Yeah. So all this stuff happens and it's like very impressive. And we get this cool shot of like the Enterprise rising out of like these like, I guess, clouds or whatever in space. The magnetic rings, I don't know. Anyway, whatever. Some Trek speak stuff so we can get the plot to do what we want. So then Kirk and Spock, they get beamed aboard the Narada, and this is really funny. So like Scotty's like, oh yeah, so I'm gonna beam you here because like if this ship makes any sense, no one should be there at all. No, right? Like this should be like the docking bay. That should be just a bunch of containers. They beam in there, and there's like a bunch of people. And they're like, "What the fuck?" like they're all like,
"Shit!
See this guy, this human, and this Vulcan. Just
where did they come from?"
Yeah, and so then they have to shoot him. They have a shoot him up with these guys, and so the Narada then starts to drill at Starfleet headquarters in San Francisco.
Oh
And so
shit!
yeah, again, this is another thing where I'm just thinking now of like kind of the plot holes. Like this, the Earth should have been destroyed.
Yeah, where's Earth's planetary defense system at this point? Like, what the hell? Like, is everyone just sleeping on the job?
Yes,
Like,
everyone's sleeping on the job, but like once they're there, they should just fire the red matter at the planet,
exactly, just fire.
right?
It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. But
Make
anyway,
sense.
unfortunately, so Kirk and Spock, they find Spock Prime's ship, and it responds to Spock's commands basically. And Spock's like, what's going on here? And Kirk kind of plays off like, oh, that's really, really interesting. And
oh wow, I don't know why that's happening.
yeah, exactly. So so he takes off, he like gets out of the ship, he shoots his way out of it. Kirk confronts Nero, but gets like in the dumb sweep ball. He's like got a gun on him, and he's like not. He's totally unaware of his surroundings, and he gets bashed in the head.
Very unaware of his surroundings.
Yeah.
This is why I say he only wins out of blind luck. Like,
yeah, yeah. Like it just feels like it almost feels like this whole movie is kind of built around how can we create a scenario where a Kirk who's like 30, I don't know how old he's supposed to be in this movie.
25 probably.
Oof. How can we have a 25-year-old Kirk become the captain? And let's just justify that with some other cool stuff.
Let's just hand it to him.
Like, yes.
For no reason whatsoever.
Totally hand it to him. Because we have to do that. Because this movie dictates it. And the franchise dictates it. Because we need a 25-year-old. Because, it's 2022 and we've only had 3 films. So. Anyway, so Spock is good at his job. Because he takes out the drill, and that allows them to now warp people and stuff. And then Nero gets pissed off, and so they start firing missiles at Spock. He warps out. They warp after him, and so Earth is safe, but our heroes are in danger. So when they get out of warp, they start firing more missiles on him, and then like basically Spock is kind of like, this is his George Kirk moment where he's like, okay, I'm just gonna fly this thing into the ship. If I die, I die, whatever. He destroyed my planet, I'm gonna destroy him. I'm ready to die. And then the Enterprise, the dude, one of the, I guess the helmsman or whatever on the Narada is like, there's another ship warping in, and then the Enterprise Enterprise comes in, it takes out all the torpedoes. It's really cool. It's a great moment. And we get the swelling, score and all that stuff. All the things you want out of a movie like this. So Spock then crashes the ship, I think it's called the Jellyfish, into the Narada. He gets beamed off before, the crash happens. We then see that like all the red matter is triggering, and it's creating a huge black hole that's consuming the ship. Massive damage to it. Despite all this, Kirk offers Nero help. And Spock's like, no, we shouldn't help him. This guy is totally evil dude. Undeserving of our help. He should die. And luckily for Spock, Nero declines. And so Kirk's like, oh, cool. Shoot him. Blow him up.
I love it. Nero has like this big grandiose thing. He's like, I'd rather watch Romulus die 1,000 times than bitch. And then Kirk's like, okay.
Yeah, okay. Fire missiles. And so they blow it up, and then it gets consumed by the black hole. So then the Enterprise tries to leave, but then they get sucked into the black hole, which is a problem.
I'm like, oh no.
This is another like one of these like, wait, that doesn't make sense. So Scotty figures out, okay, so the only way we can get out is we got to eject the Enterprise's warp cores into the thing, detonate them.
Yeah.
So they do that, and it like, I don't know what happens. Like it kind of, I guess it blows up the black hole, or it pushes them out of the black holes. I think
it propels them away from it, or something.
I mean, again, it's kind of cool, but So there's this really funny. So how it should have ended did something on this, which was funny. So what happens in that is they shoot the warp cores, right? And then there's explosion, and then the black hole is just still there, and they get sucked into it.
Yeah, I don't know why I would have destroyed
Yeah.
a black hole. It doesn't make any sense.
I believe then what happens is they time travel into another place. I forget what it was. I know they might time travel into Star Wars, which would actually make sense considering the JJ Abrams part of this.
Considering all of the similarities.
Yeah, I never even thought of. It's so funny that you brought up the thing with the planet killing weapon because I never thought of that. Never. But
that's what I'm here for. You know?
When you're right, you're right. I mean, I can't lie. That is dead on. So the good guys have won. Everyone's happy. They go back to Earth. Spock then sees someone. It looks like, hey, Dad. It's like, and then his Spock Prime is like, I am not our father.
I know, I love that. I am not our father.
Yeah, and so then they have a conversation where basically, Spock, Kelvin is like, I should leave Starfleet because there's 10,000 Vulcan left, and I need to help the Vulcan race survive.
Yeah.
And yeah, Spock Prime's like, no, I'm gonna help establish a Vulcan colony, and you can be in two places at once now because I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
You should stay in Starfleet because there's a lot that you can learn, a lot of experiences that are gonna make you who you are, and so you shouldn't deprive yourself of that just because this thing happened. And so he agrees. And so, Spock, then, we get the scene where he kind of comes back and he's like, I'd love to be your first officer or whatever.
Even though I outrank you in so many different ways.
Yeah.
That ceremony pisses me off so much.
Yeah. Ugh. Oh, the thing where Kirk
due to your exemplary acts of valor, I'm like, you got lucky. Yeah, he snuck onto his ship. He commandeered the ship by being a really insensitive douche.
Yeah.
Yeah, granted, he didn't mean any of it, but I'm just saying. He had no command experience whatsoever. He still cheated on that test. There was still an inquiry. We're just going to give him a ship? The ship? It just doesn't make... He didn't earn it. He has no experience in space at all. He's still in a classroom. He hasn't even graduated yet. Just Pike is recuperating. He can still be captain. It's just, it doesn't.
Yeah.
He's handed this Kirk is handed everything on a silver platter. Everything.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, that's kind of the intent of the story, is to make him captain at that age. That's the whole intent of this story, basically.
It's no, he has to actually go through some rigorous command training. He has to learn how to become a captain. He has to learn from other captains. He has to be in a command position, not necessarily a captain. But no, there's rigorous training that you still have left to do. You don't deserve to be a captain at all.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of where we're left with. So yeah, so Kirk becomes captain of the Enterprise. We get our crew, which is kind of exciting because the crew is really cool and the casting's really great.
Yeah, the casting's fantastic.
And at the end, we see, them take off, and we get, the motto, I guess you could say, of Starfleet or whatever.
Oh, yeah, Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah, read by Leonard Nimoy. It's really great.
That's wonderful.
Excellent. And again, that's another thing that's really, what I like is, they got him to be in these movies again before he passed away, and he passed away in 2016. Well, I think it might have been 2015. He passed away before Beyond.
Yeah, he passed away before Beyond. Yeah. It was sad. Yeah. I was at work when I found out. It ruined my whole fucking day.
Yeah. So that is Star Trek 09. We've had a long discussion about this.
Yeah, it's been a long one. I don't know about you, but I'm hungry. Hi, puppy.
Yeah.
Come here.
Cool. So I think we covered a lot, and I think we kind of talked about all the things that we probably wanted to talk about with this. There's a lot.
We never even mentioned Uhura and Spock.
Yeah, they're in a relationship.
They're
dating. So how did you feel about that?
Oh, Kirk and Uhura? I mean, not Kirk and Uhura. Spock and Uhura? I ship it.
Okay.
There are some things that happen in TOS, my friend, that already laid the groundwork for. There's like a scene, I don't know what episode it is. Spock's playing a harp, and because he is musically inclined, he has taste, and he's playing the harp or something like that. And no, sorry, he's on the bridge. He's on the bridge. He's in the captain's chair, and Uhura's just like literally staring at him like this. Like making goo eyes.
Yeah.
Because one thing that was super unprecedented about TOS was Spock's sex appeal. Ladies were into him way more than they were into Kirk. Like way more, because there is something about the unobtainable, the fact that he is so logical. Maybe it's the whole I want to change him, I want to be that one woman.
That makes him emotional and makes him like lovey-dovey.
Exactly. And he's not emotionally available either. So that makes him even more attractive for whatever reason. And she's just like, tell me about the moon on Vulcan. I bet it's so beautiful and yada, yada, yada. And he's like, Vulcan has no moon. Just straight up shuts her down. Like, he doesn't mean to. He doesn't get that she's like into him or whatever. And actually, I think the scene I was originally thinking of is her is singing and Spock is playing the harp or some shit like there's a lot of episodes where Spock gets some tail.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Originally, the interracial kiss was supposed to happen between Spock and Uhura, because it would have been crossing so many thresholds. You know, you have an alien kissing a woman of color. You have a white man kissing a woman. You have a Jewish man kissing a woman of color.
Exactly.
It would have been
crazy.
It would have broke the world at the height of the civil rights movement. But William Shatner being William Shatner was like, if there's going to be an interracial kiss, it's going to be me. Yeah, it's a whole thing. But yeah, the groundwork has always been there for some Uhura and Spock shipping, and I ship it. I think it's cool. I've always seen Spock as very asexual anyway, so I think he's just into intelligence and the right personality and the right person. So I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I think it was interesting. It was definitely again, this is another thing that's kind of like, I don't know. I don't feel like they've ever really done anything exactly like that. The way that their relationships depicted in this. And so again, it's just them like kind of pushing the boundary a little bit in different places, like different ways that we can make this, I guess, more appealing or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you have to add a little romance in there. I feel like it's part of the adventure. Romance has always been kind of married to each other. It's always been kind of a rocky, weird relationship. And I think that was probably just their way of like including some romance in there. Plus already building on a potential romantic relationship that again had some groundwork laid there. Although Nurse Chapel was way more forward with her affection towards Spock.
Yeah. Yeah, because we don't really get a Nurse Chapel in here.
McCoy says her name at one point when they first come out of, I think, or maybe it's actually Into Darkness that he says her name, but he does say Nurse Chapel at one point. You just never see her on screen.
I believe there's also she's referenced. Oh yeah. So she's referenced definitely in Into Darkness because what's her name?
Oh, Nurse Chapel and I are friends.
Carol,
yeah.
Carol Marcus brings it up, and he's like, oh, Carol Marcus, and he's like, oh, Nurse Chapel. He's like, yeah, she went away. She got the hell away from you. Basically,
which there was never anything between Kirk and Nurse Chapel, so that was just stupid to bring up. It was just so fucking. She was never into Kirk. She wanted Spock. Like when Spock is going through Ponfar, she is basically like, I'll do it. I am here, and he's like, no, girl, I will literally break you. My lovemaking is so intense. Yeah. You cannot handle it. And she's just like, oh, really? She is down to clown.
So you really want me to do this?
Yeah, every woman on the Enterprise is into Spock. Every single one. They're all about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I think it works, and that relationship. There's an arc throughout these films.
Yeah. They don't just leave it alone. There's
No,
something there.
no, they keep up with it.
And
I
I
mean,
really like Zoe Saldana and Zachary Quinto's chemistry. I think it's good. I can see it.
yeah, there's a lot of really fun moments where like there's one where like they're gonna go on that mission to go on De Niro's ship, and like they're like they're making out or whatever, and she does like the typical like um
It's petty.
girl who's mad at your her boyfriend's best friend because he's a dumbass. She gives Kirk that look like bro, if you get my dude killed, I'm gonna fucking
Yeah, I
kill
am
you.
going to kill you. I think it's kind of twofold. It's like this is what I'm into. Sexy, smart, pointy
That's
ears.
yes.
It's not
Yes.
you. It has never been. This is also why I've been like shutting you down, dude. I'm kind of with him. Kind of with him.
I'm with him and I'm happy with him and I would never date you because you're a dumb
You're
dude.
not my
like
type. You're not my type.
like
And it's also just like I think there is an arc to their relationship throughout the films. You see how frustrating it is for a human to date a Vulcan. You
yeah,
actually you get a serious impression of how difficult this is, how much effort Uhura has to put in. Because for Spock, it's just like this is just who I am. Like you have to be patient with me because I am going to be cold and clinical. I am going to prioritize things over you because that's just my natural. But then he has to learn to like, you want to be with her, you have to put her first sometimes too. So it's like it's natural things that couples go through.
you have to be available. You have to be
And you have to
emotional.
be you have to be emotionally available. You don't have to be emotionally available to others in front of me. Like that's not what I'm at. She's asking for him to be available to just her. It's like you
We
don't
even
have
a bit in this movie, like when Vulcan gets destroyed, like they have a moment in the turbo lift, and like, he's
he
not
leans
available.
he's
He's not
he's
really
he
emotionally available.
leans on her a little bit, but that's not what he needs. He's like, I need everyone to perform their duties
Mhm.
appropriately. And she's like, okay, you don't need me to hug you, you don't need me to kiss you, that's fine. But like I'm here.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know, like that definitely leaves a feeling in a human being. It's
Mm,
not a good one, I
it's
think.
not a good one. I've been on the receiving end of that. It's not always a good one.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's who he is. That's how he needs her to perform. No distractions right now.
Hmm. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, any other last thoughts on this? Anything you want to add?
There's a lot I could add. Um, I'm not
Just
gonna don't not watch it. Don't not watch it. It's a fun. They're fun movies. They are fun, fantastic, visually pleasing, well acted, humorous at times movies. Well casted, well shot. But once you start, the layers are very easy to peel back. The layers are very easy to peel back.
I
Don't watch it thinking it's going to be the Star Trek conundrum of the week because it's not. It is absolutely not. The closest you're going to get is Beyond. That is the closest you are going to get to the ultimate, like the bad guys kind of has a reason for being bad.
mm-hmm.
John Harrison, if they hadn't gone the con route, also would have had a reason to be bad. But then he's just a product of the eugenics war, and he just wants to conquer because
What he was built to do.
that's what high intelligent people want to do apparently. um they're all just psychopaths. But yeah, and Kirk will be better by beyond he's better.
There is a real arc there because basically what happens is he's gifted everything in this movie because of some crazy circumstances. In the second movie, he's kind of a puppet. He doesn't understand that he's a puppet of other forces that are making him
Mm-hmm.
do some dumb things. But he does kind of redeem himself.
He redeems himself. He finally learns a lesson, like, oh, I'm responsible for people's lives.
Yeah. Yes.
I just got a whole bunch of my crew
Killed.
needlessly killed
Yeah.
out of revenge, which is so primitive in my opinion.
And what's funny too is like there's a scene where he's bragging to Pike like, "Oh, I've never gotten. No one's
I
gotten
hate that
killed."
scene. I fucking hate that scene. That is the pinnacle of him being so utterly. And Pike tells him, "You're being arrogant. You're being careless." I wouldn't have risked my first officer's life in the first place. Why the hell did you send him? You don't have other officers who are science officers? It's like the only person right in that scene is Pike. The only person who's saying exactly what Kirk needs to hear is Pike. But then he gets killed and everyone's just like, oh, revenge, yay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like these first two movies are like him kind of like learning to really be a captain. Like,
exactly. And
he's
he
not
has
there
to.
yet. He's not there in this movie. He's not there in the second movie.
Exactly. He's not there yet. By the third movie, the thing is with Kirk in the third movie, it's not even because he's close to being like prime Kirk. He's not. He's still not anything like prime Kirk really at all. But he has a different kind of edge. He finally isn't this cocky hoity-toity like idiot who just got handed. He acts like he didn't get handed everything. He acts like he actually worked for it, and he's showing that he can work for it. I love that he's being diplomatic in the beginning of that movie. I love that shit. I love that he's actually there being like, yeah, you know what, I'm the captain, this is my responsibility to talk to the species, to broker first contact, you know, whatever it is, the circumstances he's there to do. Yeah, he cocks it up.
Well, I mean that scene's really funny because like those aliens were not down.
Exactly, and it's kind of funny. It's kind of a humorous scene.
It's really funny.
And he's like, I ripped another shirt.
Yeah.
But I also like that he's dealing with the fact that he's about to turn the age his father was when he died. Yes. And that is a very, I think,
it's existentially,
you know, really deep, and it's also just he's actually being self-reflective. He's actually thinking about his future, not just future in the next 5 minutes, which is how Kelvin Kirk generally behaves most of the time. How do I survive the next 5 minutes?
How do I get to the next thrill? Where's the next Orion girl that I can...
Exactly. He's not thinking about the thrill. He's thinking about the exploration, the possibility of what's out there. And that is what ultimately excited Kirk. He wasn't a thrill junkie. He was or a risk junkie. Yeah, he took risks and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, he was about exploring space because it's the only thing that'll ever fulfill him. And that's why I like Beyond Kirk is good. He's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess my final thoughts. I really like this film a lot. It's a lot of fun. This was like the first Star Trek film that I remember really like. Again, I've talked about like I saw Insurrection and Generations and First Contact. I saw all those. Definitely Generations and Insurrection. Like there's some stuff I was like, it just didn't process for me. It was like,
yeah,
didn't hit me in a way. This film really kind of hit me, and it made me kind of interested, at least in the universe that they built, because it's very compelling. But it's so different, right? It's so different, and I think it's different in a good way for itself, because there's still the Prime timeline. There's still all this stuff there, and we're getting more content there too. You know, I mean, basically everything, right? Everything is Prime timeline.
All the movies, yeah.
Yeah.
With the exception of obviously these ones.
Yeah. And even the TV shows, right? Aren't all the TV shows Prime timeline?
Yep. As much as, you know, some detractors would like to say, they are not. It is the Prime timeline, whether you like it or not. But obviously they've done time travel, but they've never split entirely into a alternate reality. Yeah. I mean, unless you count, no, those are just episodes. I was going to say the mirror universe, but that they only visit the mirror universe. The mirror universe doesn't take on a whole TV show of its own.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like, it's just kind of interesting. Like, this is just a different take. And so I think the fact that, and this is what's so kind of smart about making a different alternate timeline, is that we can have these films and they actually really don't affect all the other stuff that people consume. That's Star Trek. It doesn't.
No, it's not retconning it. It's not retconning it at all. It's just, you know, it's just tweets. Certain events will still happen. Certain events must still be, you know, set in stone. Kirk must always meet Khan in one form or another. He must always be faced with that challenge of like life or death. But yeah, it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't retcon anything. It doesn't ruin anything. It's its own separate entity. So yeah,
and they have their own cinematic style.
Yep.
I think, you know, the style of this It's very cool. It's very, it's just like taking all of the tools that film has and putting them out there using this, using Star Trek as a vehicle for it. And I can see why a lot of people would kind of feel poor, like have strong feelings about it that are negative, because this film really in a lot of ways is, again, like we talked about at the beginning, it's using that IP as a vehicle to do other things.
Yeah, and that's why it kind of leaves a bitter. That's why I'm a little bit of a bitter bitch, quite frankly, is because
Totally get it.
when you realize when you realize why you have something came from just a job. It's just a job interview for someone else, which is fine. I get how I might not be in it, but I understand how like the Hollywood game works. Not everything is done out of good intentions. It's to do one other thing, you know. But there's just a lot of feelings. There's just a lot of feelings behind that, and it sours my opinion of JJ Abrams. It sours my opinion of these movies. While I can still enjoy them, it's just because he has a producing credit on Beyond doesn't mean shit to me personally. He pieced out because he didn't need to do it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, he was done. He
was done. He didn't need to do anymore. Star Wars was in the bag.
Yeah,
that's it. That's all he wanted to do.
Yeah,
which is like, dude, do your thing, but you can do it without making Star Trek something that it's not.
Yeah, and like, full disclosure, like I'm definitely more of a Star Wars guy, as you can see from my.
Oh yeah, that's fine. I'm obviously way more of a Star Trek person.
And like JJ basically kind of made like it's kind of a mess up to say, but it's the truth. Like a Star Trek movie that's more, it's like a Star Trek movie by a Star Wars guy for Star Wars fan. Well, I wouldn't say for, but it's like it's he's taking those sensibilities and he's putting it into Star Trek.
Yeah, it doesn't land well for a lot of people who are hoping for something with a little bit more substance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not saying that Star Wars doesn't have some substance or anything like that. Obviously it does. Otherwise it wouldn't be as, such a phenomenon that it is.
But yeah, I mean, I totally understand why people have a certain, like these films are very different from the films that we watched. Like every other film, like this kind of crazy thing. Every other film that we watched, there is certain continuity. Some of them were good. Some of them were really good. Some of them were bad. But they all kind of had a similar type of take to them. And the JJ Abrams films were never going to be like Star Trek the Motion Picture. I mean, like,
no, and I'm not, and I don't want them to be Star Trek the Motion Picture. Star Trek the Motion Picture has its place in the Star Trek canon, and it has its place within the film franchise, and it has a phenomenal science fiction story. It's a little boring. She's a little bit boring. She's got a great personality, but she's a little boring. Which is why they had it more exciting in Wrath of Khan and Search for Spock and there was more excitement. Also, Star Wars had just come out. You need some excitement going on in there. So it's not like Star Trek hasn't stolen from the Star Wars playbook before. They certainly have. Nobody has clean hands in this. But to be so blatant, I'm looking at you, R2D2.
Yeah, who shows up in a
I'm looking at you, Destruction of Vulcan. It's just, I just don't like it.
Let me see if I can pull this up. Yeah, it's actually like, it looks like it's. No, it's. I was thinking it was at the beginning, but it's when. I'm pretty sure it's when they get they warp out, and they see the Narada and all the other stuff has been destroyed. There's all that debris. Let me see if I can pull up this this proof that R2D2 is in this movie. I don't know if you can see this very well.
I know what it looks like.
Hold on. You can kind of see it. Hold on, let me see if there's a bigger one. Anyway, like, he's there. He's in this movie.
He's there, all right.
Why not?
I don't know. Some people would be like, Lily, it's only for a split second. It's not. In the grand scheme of things, that was a statement. That was a lengthy, wordy, freaking statement that I, quite frankly, do not want in my Star Trek.
It's putting up a flag, and it's saying, "This is my
pick me, pick me, pick me."
Yeah. Hey, I mean, look, I mean, I'm sure that's many people's dream job. And you know, I mean, far be it from me to like to be mad at someone for trying to live their dream out, you know?
No, I mean, totally. That's fine. That's fine if it's your dream. Keep it fucking away. I don't want to have your dream in Star Trek, bro.
Yeah, I mean that's
like,
that's totally fair. That's
I
totally.
know I harp on it, but it just pisses me off. Plus, the freaking ship in Into Darkness is basically a Death Star. It's like, no, a Star Destroyer. Sorry, it's basically a Star Destroyer. It's like dark and it's creepy and it's sleek and it looks like freaking. It just looks like something directly. It does. It's a terror. I hate that freaking design of what the USS Vengeance or some shit like that. Like. It's like the Vengeance. I think it has like a really ominous name, and it's just like, are we supposed to believe those are the good guys? It's called a Star Destroyer in Star Wars. At least they were just like out and proud
with
it.
Blatant about it.
They were bragging about what their ship can do.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. So yeah, I mean, look, I like this film. I recently watched all these, and yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed them. I think the enjoyment descends, unfortunately. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I like about Into Darkness too. When we talk about that, I'll kind of give my take on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that just basically covers it. You know, we've said a lot. There's a lot to be said about these films. And so this is the start, I guess. We'll talk about Into Darkness. There's a lot to talk about there. Again, my take on Into Darkness is like the moment, and it's in one of these podcasts, you can watch it, where I realized that the Carol Marcus in that film is supposed to be the same as the Carol Marcus in Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, and your mind got blown.
It's like it just well, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. They're not the same person. They're not. It just doesn't work. So
no. Anyway, it
doesn't. And yeah, there's a lot of sins that these films have. And I mean, I just think like they almost like shouldn't do that kind of stuff. Like they should have called her Carol Marcus. They should have just called her Carol Johnson or something. Or
just have her have a different name. Or okay, that's Betty Ann over there, or some shit like that. Like it's not even close to any. At least with Kirk and McCoy and Spock, there's something close to who they originally were. Carol Marcus, Into Darkness, Carol Marcus is an affront on everything that the original character was.
I mean,
it's not an insult.
That's not.
Like that's why I don't trust JJ Abrams with female characters at all. I don't trust him.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just can't. Like, stop.
Well, tune in sometime in the future when we interview Into Darkness, Star Trek Into Darkness. Be a very fun review. Well, until then, we have to go and eat, and Lily's
I'm getting angry.
Lily's been gonna watch some more Star Wars. Speaking of
I got Revenge of the Sith to finish, and then I have Force Awakens after that. I mostly just I know how we talked last week about how we would watch them in order. I'm just watching them as how Disney Plus has them up.
Oh yeah. I mean that's probably about what we would do them in reviewing, basically.
Exactly. I'm just watching them as they're promoted to me.
Be like release year, I think is probably the best thing to do, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. Take care. And may the Force be with you.
Live long and prosper.